Welcome. Let's start. The infinite loop of curiosity, a spiral of inquiry. Imagine standing at the edge of an endless spiral staircase, its steps spiraling upward into infinity. Each step you ascend brings a fleeting sense of accomplishment, a momentary clarity as you perceive something new about the world around you. Yet, with every step forward, the horizon expands further, revealing layers of complexity that were previously hidden. This is not a journey toward a destination, but rather an exploration of perpetual discovery, a metaphor for the human condition and our insatiable drive to understand. It is here, in this infinite ascent, that we encounter the essence of paradox, a phenomenon that simultaneously illuminates and obscures, offering answers while generating more questions. Paradoxes, like the staircase, are deceptively simple in their presentation, yet profoundly unsettling in their implications. They challenge us to rethink what we believe we know, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding. At first glance, the notion of paradox may seem abstract or distant, relegated to philosophical debates or mathematical puzzles, but consider its presence in everyday life. Take, for instance, the act of learning itself. When you begin studying a subject, you might feel confident once you've grasped the basics. Yet, as your knowledge deepens, you realize how much more there is to uncover. What initially seems straightforward becomes layered with nuance, raising questions you hadn't even considered before. This dynamic mirrors the spiral staircase. Each step forward reveals new vistas, but those vistas also highlight the vastness of what remains unknown. Paradoxes operate in much the same way, presenting truths that defy conventional logic and demanding a deeper engagement with the world. The unsettling nature of paradox lies in its ability to disrupt our assumptions. We are creatures of habit, inclined to seek order and predictability. Paradoxes, however, refuse to conform to these expectations. They invite us to dwell in ambiguity, where certainty gives way to curiosity. Consider the classic example of Zeno's paradox. If Achilles must first cover half the distance to the tortoise, then half of the remaining distance, and so on, will he ever truly catch up? On the surface, it seems absurd. Of course Achilles will overtake the tortoise. Yet, the paradox forces us to grapple with the concept of infinity, challenging our intuitive understanding of motion and time. This tension between the obvious and the inexplicable is what makes paradoxes so compelling and so unsettling. What makes paradoxes particularly powerful is their capacity to stretch the boundaries of human reasoning. They do not merely ask us to reconsider specific ideas, but prompt a broader re-evaluation of how we think. By confronting contradictions that cannot be easily resolved, we are compelled to adopt new perspectives, to question the frameworks we rely on to make sense of the world. In doing so, paradoxes cultivate intellectual agility, teaching us to embrace complexity rather than shy away from it. This process can be both exhilarating and disorienting, akin to navigating the endless turns of a spiral staircase without knowing where it leads. Yet, it is precisely this uncertainty that fuels our curiosity, propelling us forward in search of deeper truths. Paradoxes also remind us that reality is rarely as straightforward as it appears. They expose the limitations of binary thinking, where concepts are divided into neat categories of true or false, right or wrong. Instead, they reveal the fluidity and interconnectedness of existence. For example, the ship of Theseus paradox asks whether an object remains the same if all its components are gradually replaced. If every plank of a ship is replaced over time, is it still the original ship? And if the original planks are reassembled into a new vessel, which one truly embodies the original identity? This paradox challenges our assumptions about continuity and change, inviting us to reflect on the nature of identity itself. It reminds us that the boundaries we impose on the world are often artificial constructs, designed to simplify a reality that is inherently complex and dynamic. Moreover, paradoxes have a unique ability to quiet the mind, while simultaneously sparking new avenues of thought. In a world that often demands immediate answers and definitive solutions, paradoxes offer a rare opportunity to pause and reflect. They encourage us to sit with uncertainty, to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing, and to find beauty in the unresolved. This quality makes them particularly well suited for moments of introspection, such as when drifting off to sleep. As the mind wanders through the labyrinth of paradoxical ideas, it enters a state of calm contemplation, free from the urgency of problem-solving. The gentle tug of a paradox keeps the mind engaged just enough to prevent restlessness, but relaxed enough to welcome slumber. Ultimately, paradoxes serve as reminders of the infinite possibilities that lie beyond the horizon of human understanding. They invite us to remain humble in the face of mystery, recognizing that the more we learn, the more there is to discover. Like the spiral staircase that symbolizes our journey through paradox, the pursuit of knowledge loops back on itself, revisiting familiar ground, while continually ascending to new heights. Each revelation brings with it fresh questions, ensuring that the quest for understanding remains perpetually open-ended. Far from being a source of frustration, this infinite loop of inquiry is what makes the pursuit of knowledge so profoundly rewarding. As we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not mere intellectual puzzles, but reflections of the complexities of existence. They challenge us to question not only the world around us, but also the very core of our being. Imagine, for a moment, a paradox that strikes at the heart of your existence: free will. Is your life truly your own, shaped by the choices you make, or are you bound by forces beyond your control? This question, seemingly simple on the surface, unravels into a labyrinth of philosophical, scientific, and existential implications that challenge the foundation of personal agency. It is here, at this crossroads of autonomy and inevitability, that we confront one of the most profound paradoxes humanity has ever grappled with. Let us continue this journey together, stepping ever closer to the heart of the matter. The paradox of free will, a journey into autonomy and determinism. Every choice you make, whether it's deciding what to eat for breakfast, choosing a career path, or reflecting on your own thoughts, feels deeply personal. It carries the weight of intention, as though you are the sole architect of your actions. Yet, beneath this seemingly straightforward experience lies a question that has haunted philosophers, scientists, and thinkers for centuries. What if every decision you've ever made was predetermined long before you were born? This unsettling proposition forms the foundation of one of humanity's most enduring paradoxes, the tension between free will and determinism. At its core, the paradox of free will challenges us to reconcile two ideas that appear fundamentally at odds with one another. On one side stands determinism, the belief that all events in the universe unfold according to a chain of cause and effect. In this framework, every action is the inevitable result of preceding conditions, stretching back through time like an unbroken thread. On the other side stands free will, the notion that individuals possess the capacity to make choices independent of external forces, shaping their lives through conscious decisions. These two concepts seem irreconcilable, yet they coexist within the human experience, creating a profound intellectual and existential dilemma. Determinism finds its roots in classical physics, particularly in the work of Isaac Newton, whose laws of motion describe a universe governed by predictable, mechanical principles. In this deterministic worldview, the universe operates like a meticulously calibrated machine, where every action is the inevitable result of prior causes. For instance, if a billiard ball strikes another, the trajectory of the second ball is determined by the angle, speed, and force of the collision. Extrapolating this principle to human behavior, determinists argue that our thoughts, emotions, and decisions are similarly shaped by antecedent conditions, such as genetics, upbringing, and environmental stimuli. From this perspective, free will appears illusory, a comforting myth constructed by the mind to obscure the harsh reality of inevitability. Philosophers have long debated the implications of determinism for human agency. One prominent school of thought, known as hard determinism, asserts that free will is entirely incompatible with a deterministic universe. Proponents of this view, such as Baron Delbach, argue that human actions are no different from the movements of celestial bodies or the flow of rivers. They are governed by immutable laws that leave no room for autonomous choice. Hard determinists contend that the sensation of free will arises from ignorance of the myriad factors influencing our decisions. For example, when you choose to take a particular route to work, you may feel as though you are exercising free will. But a hard determinist would point to the unconscious calculations your brain performs, weighing traffic patterns, weather conditions, and past experiences, to explain why that choice was inevitable. In contrast, compatibilism offers a more reconciliatory approach, arguing that free will and determinism are not mutually exclusive. Compatibilists, such as David Hume and Daniel Dennett, redefine free will in a way that aligns with determinism. According to this view, free will does not require the absence of causation, but rather the ability to act in accordance with one's desires and motivations without external coercion. For instance, if you freely choose to drink coffee in the morning because you enjoy its taste and energizing effects, your action is still determined by your preferences and habits. However, since no external force compelled you to make that choice, you are considered free in a meaningful sense. Compatibilism shifts the focus from the metaphysical question of whether free will exists to the practical question of whether individuals have the opportunity to act on their intentions. While compatibilism provides a pragmatic resolution to the paradox, it does not fully address the visceral unease many feel at the prospect of living in a deterministic universe. Libertarian free will, another philosophical stance, rejects determinism outright, asserting that humans possess an inherent capacity for genuine choice that transcends causal chains. Libertarians argue that free will requires the ability to have acted otherwise in any given situation, a condition they believe is incompatible with determinism. This view aligns with our intuitive sense of agency, but struggles to explain how such freedom could exist within a universe governed by physical laws. For instance, if our brains are composed of neurons firing in response to chemical signals, how can we claim to make decisions independently of these biological processes? The paradox of free will raises profound questions about responsibility, morality, and identity. Consider the concept of responsibility, a cornerstone of human interaction and governance. In a deterministic universe, where every action is the inevitable result of prior causes, the notion of accountability becomes fraught with ambiguity. If a person commits a crime, is it fair to punish them if their behavior was dictated by forces beyond their control? For instance, imagine a thief whose actions are traced back to a childhood marked by poverty, abuse, and limited opportunities. From a deterministic perspective, these circumstances could be seen as the root cause of their criminal behavior, absolving them of moral responsibility. Yet society relies on the principle of accountability to maintain order and justice. Without it, the legal system, and by extension social cohesion, would collapse. This tension between determinism and responsibility underscores the difficulty of reconciling philosophical ideals with practical realities. The moral implications of the free will paradox are equally profound. Ethics, as a discipline, is predicated on the assumption that individuals have the capacity to make choices, and are therefore responsible for the consequences of those choices. Virtue ethics, for example, emphasizes the cultivation of moral character through deliberate actions. Similarly, deontological ethics argues that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of their outcomes. Both frameworks presuppose the existence of free will, as they hinge on the idea that individuals can act in accordance with or against moral principles. However, if determinism holds true, then moral judgments lose their grounding. How can we condemn someone for acting immorally if their actions were preordained? On the other hand, rejecting determinism entirely risks oversimplifying the complexities of human behavior, ignoring the myriad factors that influence decision-making. This paradox forces us to reconsider the nature of morality itself. Is it an objective standard, a subjective construct, or something else entirely? Identity, too, is profoundly shaped by the paradox of free will. Our sense of self is deeply intertwined with the belief that we are agents capable of shaping our own destinies. When confronted with the possibility that our choices are not truly our own, this belief is called into question. Who are we, if not the sum of our decisions? Consider the ship of Theseus paradox, which asks whether an object remains the same if all its components are gradually replaced. Applied to human identity, this paradox mirrors the fluidity of selfhood. If our thoughts, behaviors, and even personalities are influenced by factors outside our control, then what constitutes the essence of who we are? Are we defined by our genetic makeup, our upbringing, or the choices we perceive ourselves making? The free will paradox complicates these questions, challenging us to reconcile the continuity of identity with the ever-changing nature of existence. As we transition to the next segment, an exploration of simulated realities, we carry with us the awareness that the questions raised by the free will paradox are not merely theoretical, but deeply personal. They touch the core of how we understand ourselves, relate to others, and navigate the world. Whether we are grappling with issues of responsibility, morality, or identity, the paradox of free will serves as a reminder of the complexity and beauty of human existence. It invites us to remain curious, reflective, and open to the mysteries that define our journey through life. Speaking of questioning fundamental truths, let's dive into another mind-bending concept. What if you're living inside a simulated universe? The simulation hypothesis. Questioning the nature of reality. Have you ever paused to wonder whether the world around you, the trees swaying in the breeze, the laughter of a child, or even the thoughts swirling in your mind is real? Or could it all be an elaborate simulation, crafted by advanced beings with technology far beyond our comprehension? This unsettling yet tantalizing idea forms the foundation of one of modern philosophy's most provocative concepts, the simulation hypothesis. At its core, this hypothesis challenges us to reconsider the very nature of reality, inviting us to entertain the possibility that everything we perceive might be an artificial construct. It is not merely a fanciful notion from science fiction, but a profound philosophical inquiry that has captured the imaginations of scientists, philosophers, and thinkers alike. The simulation hypothesis gained significant traction through the work of philosopher Nick Bostrom, who proposed a compelling trilemma that forces us to confront the implications of technological advancement. According to Bostrom, one of three possibilities must be true. Either no civilization reaches the technological level needed to create simulations, such civilizations choose not to run them, or we are almost certainly living in a simulation ourselves. This elegant framework invites us to consider the staggering implications of each scenario. If no civilization achieves the capability to simulate conscious experiences, it suggests that technological progress may have inherent limits, or that catastrophic events prevent civilizations from reaching such heights. If advanced civilizations exist, but choose not to run simulations, it raises questions about their motivations, ethics, and values. And if we are indeed living in a simulation, the consequences for our understanding of existence are nothing short of revolutionary. The idea that we might be inhabitants of a simulated universe is both disorienting and exhilarating. Imagine for a moment that the laws of physics, the passage of time, and even the essence of consciousness are not fundamental truths, but meticulously designed parameters within a hyper-advanced computer program. In this scenario, the stars in the night sky, the emotions you feel, and the choices you make could all be part of a grand experiment, orchestrated by beings whose intellect dwarfs our own. While this hypothesis may seem far-fetched, it aligns with certain advancements in technology and computational theory. Consider the rapid progress of virtual reality, VR, and artificial intelligence, AI. Today, VR systems can create immersive environments indistinguishable from the physical world, while AI algorithms can simulate human-like behavior with remarkable precision. If current trends continue, it is conceivable that future civilizations could develop simulations so sophisticated that they replicate the complexity of our own universe. The simulation hypothesis, then, is not merely a philosophical abstraction, but a plausible extrapolation of where humanity's technological trajectory might lead. If we accept the possibility that we are living in a simulation, profound questions arise about the meaning and significance of our experiences. Would pain, joy, or love lose their value if they were part of a programmed reality? Or would these emotions gain even greater significance because they are integral to a grand design? These questions strike at the heart of what it means to be human, challenging us to reflect on the nature of existence itself. Pain, for instance, might be dismissed as a mere artifact of the simulation, an illusion created to mimic the struggles of life. Yet it is precisely through pain that we grow, learn resilience, and forge deeper connections with others. Similarly, Joy and love, whether real or simulated, remain transformative forces that shape our identities and relationships. The simulation hypothesis does not diminish the importance of these experiences. Rather, it reframes them, inviting us to find meaning within the context of a potentially artificial world. Moreover, the simulation hypothesis prompts us to reconsider the boundaries between creator and creation. If we are indeed living in a simulation, then our creators, whether they are advanced humans, extraterrestrial beings, or some other form of intelligence, hold a godlike status in relation to us. Yet this raises intriguing possibilities. Could we, as inhabitants of the simulation, eventually develop the capacity to create our own simulations, becoming creators ourselves? This recursive chain of simulations within simulations suggests a multi-layered reality, where the distinction between creator and created blurs into infinity. Such a perspective challenges traditional notions of divinity, purpose, and agency, urging us to embrace the interconnectedness of all things. The implications of the simulation hypothesis extend beyond philosophy, seeping into fields such as science, ethics, and even psychology. In science, the hypothesis encourages researchers to explore alternative explanations for phenomena that defy conventional understanding. For example, quantum mechanics, with its probabilistic nature and observer-dependent outcomes, has often been described as resembling a simulation. Could the peculiarities of quantum behavior be evidence of underlying computational processes? In ethics, the simulation hypothesis raises questions about the treatment of simulated beings. If we were to create sentient entities within a simulation, would they possess rights akin to those of biological beings? And if we ourselves are simulated, how should this knowledge influence our behavior? These ethical dilemmas underscore the profound interconnectedness of philosophical inquiry and practical considerations. As we sit with the swirling thoughts provoked by the simulation hypothesis, it becomes clear that this concept is not just an intellectual exercise, but a deeply personal exploration. It challenges us to confront the fragility of our assumptions about reality, identity, and meaning. By entertaining the possibility that we are living in a simulation, we open ourselves to new ways of thinking about the world and our place within it. The hypothesis invites us to remain humble in the face of mystery, recognizing that the more we learn, the more there is to discover. It reminds us that reality, whether simulated or not, is a tapestry woven from the threads of curiosity, imagination, and wonder. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that the questions raised by the simulation hypothesis are not confined to the realm of philosophy. They ripple outward, touching every aspect of human existence. Speaking of questioning fundamental truths, prepare to unravel another mind-bending concept, the nature of time itself. Time flows forward, right, wrong. Prepare to dive into the mysteries of time travel and its paradoxical consequences, where the past, present, and future collide in ways that challenge everything we thought we knew. The grandfather paradox. A journey through time and logic. What happens if you go back in time and accidentally prevent your grandparents from meeting? Do you cease to exist, or create a new timeline altogether? This deceptively simple question forms the crux of one of the most famous paradoxes in the realm of time travel, the grandfather paradox. On the surface, it seems like a playful thought experiment, but beneath its whimsical veneer lies a profound challenge to our understanding of causality, existence, and the very fabric of reality. The grandfather paradox forces us to confront the logical inconsistencies that arise when we entertain the possibility of altering the past, raising questions that defy easy resolution and stretch the limits of human reasoning. At its core, the grandfather paradox highlights the tension between cause and effect, two principles that govern our understanding of the universe. With the pounces is a par the pounces and a founces and a fair. Imagine traveling back in time and inadvertently preventing your grandparents from meeting, perhaps by interfering with a chance encounter or an event that brought them together. If they never meet, your parents are never born, and consequently, neither are you. But if you were never born, how could you have traveled back in time to prevent their meeting in the first place? This self-referential loop creates a logical impasse, exposing the fragility of our assumptions about time and causality. It suggests that altering the past could lead to impossible outcomes, where events negate their own existence, creating contradictions that defy the laws of logic. The grandfather paradox is not merely an abstract intellectual puzzle. It has profound implications for our understanding of time travel and the nature of reality itself. For centuries, time has been perceived as a linear progression, a river flowing inexorably from past to present to future. However, the advent of modern physics, particularly Einstein's theory of relativity, has challenged this traditional view. Relativity suggests that time is not an absolute entity, but a dimension woven into the fabric of space-time, capable of being bent, stretched, or even folded under certain conditions. This theoretical framework opens the door to the possibility of time travel, at least in principle. Yet, the grandfather paradox serves as a stark reminder that the practical and logical challenges of time travel remain formidable obstacles. Philosophers and physicists have proposed various solutions to resolve the contradictions posed by the grandfather paradox. One such solution is the concept of branching timelines, or parallel universes. According to this theory, any action that alters the past does not erase the original timeline, but instead creates a new, divergent timeline. In this scenario, if you travel back in time and prevent your grandparents from meeting, you do not cease to exist in your original timeline. Instead, you create an alternate reality where your grandparents never meet and you are never born. This multiverse hypothesis posits that there are infinite versions of yourself, each shaped by different decisions and events across parallel realities. While this idea offers a way to sidestep the logical inconsistencies of the grandfather paradox, it also introduces a host of new questions. How many timelines exist? Are these alternate realities equally real, or do they exist only as potentialities? And if so, what does it mean to be you, if there are countless iterations of yourself scattered across the multiverse? Another proposed solution to the grandfather paradox is the Novikov self-consistency principle, which asserts that time travel is possible, but constrained by the laws of causality. According to this principle, any actions taken by a time traveler were always part of history and cannot alter the outcome of events. In other words, if you travel back in time and attempt to prevent your grandparents from meeting, something will inevitably intervene to ensure that they do meet. Whether through a series of improbable coincidences or direct intervention by the universe itself. This deterministic view of time travel eliminates the possibility of paradox by asserting that the past, present, and future are fixed and immutable. While this solution preserves the integrity of causality, it also raises unsettling questions about free will. If every action taken by a time traveler was always destined to happen, then their journey through time becomes less an act of agency and more a predetermined sequence of events. This perspective blurs the line between autonomy and inevitability, echoing the tensions explored in earlier discussions of free will. The exploration of the grandfather paradox extends beyond the realm of theoretical physics and philosophy, inspiring creative interpretations in literature, film, and popular culture. Stories like Ray Bradbury's A Sound of Thunder, or films such as Back to the Future, delve into the ramifications of altering the past, often using the paradox as a narrative device to explore themes of consequence, responsibility, and identity. In A Sound of Thunder, for example, a time traveler accidentally steps on a butterfly during a prehistoric expedition, setting off a chain reaction that drastically alters the future. This story illustrates the butterfly effect, a phenomenon in chaos theory, where small actions can have far-reaching and unpredictable consequences. By weaving the grandfather paradox into their narratives, these works invite audiences to reflect on the interconnectedness of events and the delicate balance that sustains the timeline of existence. The implications of the grandfather paradox also resonate with broader existential questions about the nature of reality and human experience. If time travel were possible, would it empower us to rewrite history, correcting past mistakes and forging a better future? Or would it reveal the futility of such efforts, demonstrating that some events are destined to unfold regardless of our interventions? These questions challenge us to consider the limits of human agency and the extent to which we can shape the course of our lives. They also invite us to ponder the ethical dimensions of time travel. If altering the past could lead to unintended consequences, potentially erasing entire timelines or civilizations, what responsibilities would time travelers bear? Would they become guardians of history, tasked with preserving the integrity of the timeline, or architects of change, wielding the power to reshape reality itself? As we sit with the swirling possibilities inspired by the grandfather paradox, we are reminded of the vastness and complexity of the universe. The notion of infinite timelines and parallel realities invites us to embrace the mystery of existence, recognizing that reality may be far richer and more intricate than our finite minds can comprehend. At the same time, the paradox underscores the importance of causality and consequence, urging us to reflect on the ripple effects of our actions, not just in the realm of time travel, but in everyday life. Every decision we make, no matter how small, contributes to the unfolding tapestry of existence, shaping the world in ways both seen and unseen. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to speculative scenarios like time travel. Some paradoxes are firmly rooted in observable phenomena, challenging our understanding of the physical world in equally profound ways. For instance, have you heard of Schrödinger's cat, a creature both alive and dead until observed? This paradox, emerging from the peculiarities of quantum mechanics, invites us to explore the boundaries of reality and perception, further deepening our appreciation for the mysteries that define the human experience. Schrödinger's cat and quantum superposition, a window into the quantum realm. In the quantum realm, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until someone looks at them. Sounds absurd, doesn't it? Yet, this counterintuitive notion lies at the heart of one of the most famous thought experiments in physics, Schrödinger's cat, proposed by Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935. This paradox was designed to highlight the peculiarities of quantum mechanics and challenge our classical understanding of reality. At first glance, the idea of a cat being both alive and dead until observed seems nonsensical, even absurd. However, beneath its whimsical surface, Schrödinger's thought experiment reveals profound truths about the nature of existence, perception, and the limits of human understanding. Schrödinger's thought experiment illustrates the principle of superposition, a cornerstone of quantum mechanics. In the quantum world, particles such as electrons or photons can exist in multiple states at once, a phenomenon known as superposition. For instance, an electron can occupy multiple positions or energy levels simultaneously until it is measured. Once observed, however, the particle collapses into a single definite state. To make this concept more tangible and more unsettling, Schrödinger imagined a hypothetical scenario involving a cat placed inside a sealed box with a radioactive atom, a Geiger counter, a vial of poison, and a hammer. If the Geiger counter detects radiation, a random quantum event, the hammer smashes the vial, releasing the poison and killing the cat. Until the box is opened and the system is observed, the cat exists in a superposition of states, simultaneously alive and dead. This paradox exposes the stark contrast between the quantum and classical worlds. In our everyday experience, objects have definite properties. An apple is either red or green. A light switch is either on or off. Quantum mechanics, however, defies these binary distinctions, suggesting that reality itself may be fundamentally indeterminate until observed. Schrödinger's cat forces us to confront the unsettling possibility that the act of observation plays a crucial role in shaping reality. This raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness, perception, and existence. Does reality depend on an observer to collapse into a definite state, or does the mere potential for observation suffice? These questions blur the boundaries between the physical and the metaphysical, challenging us to rethink what we consider real. The implications of Schrödinger's thought experiment extend far beyond the realm of theoretical physics, touching on philosophical debates about the nature of consciousness and the role of the observer. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics, such as the Copenhagen interpretation, suggest that observation is essential for determining the state of a quantum system. In this view, the observer acts as a mediator between potentiality and actuality, collapsing the wave function, a mathematical description of a quantum system's possible states, into a single outcome. This perspective places consciousness at the center of reality, implying that the universe might not exist independently of perception. Such an idea resonates with certain philosophical traditions, such as idealism, which posits that reality is fundamentally mental or experiential. Other interpretations of quantum mechanics, however, challenge the centrality of consciousness in determining reality. The many worlds interpretation, for example, proposes that all possible outcomes of a quantum event actually occur, but in separate, branching universes. In this framework, Schrödinger's cat is not simultaneously alive and dead, but exists in two parallel realities, one where the cat lives and another where it dies. While this interpretation avoids the need for an observer to collapse the wave function, it introduces new complexities, such as the existence of infinite, coexisting realities. These divergent interpretations underscore the profound ambiguity of quantum mechanics, reminding us that the more we learn, the more questions arise. Quantum mechanics also challenges our understanding of causality and determinism. In the classical world, events follow a predictable chain of cause and effect. Quantum mechanics, however, introduces an element of inherent randomness. For instance, the decay of a radioactive atom occurs probabilistically, without a discernible cause. This indeterminacy undermines the deterministic worldview that has dominated scientific thought since the time of Newton. Instead, it suggests that the universe operates according to probabilistic principles, where outcomes are not predetermined, but emerge from a complex interplay of possibilities. This shift in perspective invites us to embrace uncertainty as a fundamental aspect of existence, rather than as a limitation of human knowledge. The exploration of Schrödinger's cat and quantum superposition also has practical implications, particularly in the development of quantum technologies. Quantum computing, for example, leverages the principles of superposition and entanglement to perform calculations at speeds unattainable by classical computers. By harnessing the power of quantum mechanics, researchers hope to revolutionize fields such as cryptography, artificial intelligence, and materials science. Yet, these advancements also raise ethical and philosophical questions. If quantum mechanics allows us to manipulate reality at its most fundamental level, what responsibilities do we bear as creators and observers? How do we ensure that these technologies are used for the betterment of humanity, rather than its detriment? As we reflect on the implications of Schrödinger's cat, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of science, philosophy, and human experience. The paradox challenges us to question the nature of reality itself, inviting us to embrace the mysteries that lie beyond the horizon of human understanding. It reminds us that the universe is far stranger and more wondrous than our finite minds can fully comprehend. By contemplating the dualities of life and death, observation and potentiality, determinism and randomness, we deepen our appreciation for the intricate tapestry of existence. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to the microscopic world of quantum mechanics. They also manifest on a cosmic scale, challenging our understanding of the universe and our place within it. For instance, why haven't we found signs of extraterrestrial life despite the vastness of the cosmos? This question, known as the Fermi paradox, invites us to explore the silence of the stars and the profound implications of our search for meaning in an infinitely expansive universe. The Fermi paradox: where is everyone? The universe is unimaginably vast, filled with billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars and planets. With such an abundance of celestial real estate, it seems almost inevitable that intelligent extraterrestrial life exists somewhere out there. Yet, despite decades of searching, we have found no definitive evidence of such civilizations. This unsettling contradiction lies at the heart of one of the most profound questions in science and philosophy: the Fermi paradox, named after physicist Enrico Fermi, who famously asked, "Where is everybody?" during a casual lunchtime conversation. This paradox forces us to confront the humbling possibility that we may be alone, or that advanced civilizations are far more elusive than we imagine. At its core, the Fermi paradox arises from the tension between two seemingly contradictory facts. On one hand, the sheer scale of the universe suggests that intelligent life should be abundant. Statistical models, such as the Drake equation, estimate the number of civilizations capable of interstellar communication based on factors like the rate of star formation, the prevalence of habitable planets, and the likelihood of life-evolving intelligence. Even conservative estimates suggest that thousands, if not millions, of advanced civilizations could exist within our galaxy alone. On the other hand, despite extensive efforts to detect signs of extraterrestrial life, such as radio signals, artificial megastructures, or even microbial fossils on Mars, we have yet to find any conclusive evidence. This absence of contact creates a profound mystery that challenges our assumptions about the cosmos and our place within it. Numerous explanations have been proposed to resolve the Fermi paradox, each offering a glimpse into the complexities of existence on a cosmic scale. One possibility is that advanced civilizations self-destruct before they can establish lasting contact with others. History on Earth provides ample evidence of how technological progress can lead to catastrophic consequences, from nuclear warfare to environmental collapse. If this pattern holds true for other intelligent species, it might explain why the universe appears silent, a grim reminder of the fragility of civilization. Another explanation is that intelligent life is rare, not because the conditions for life are uncommon, but because the leap from simple organisms to sentient beings is extraordinarily improbable. This hypothesis suggests that while microbial life may be widespread, the emergence of consciousness and technology might be an exceedingly rare event. Other theories propose that advanced civilizations are simply too far apart in time or space to communicate. The universe is vast, and even light, the fastest known medium of information travel, takes thousands of years to traverse the distances between stars. If civilizations arise sporadically across the cosmos, their lifespans might not overlap, leaving them forever isolated from one another. Alternatively, some argue that extraterrestrial societies may intentionally avoid contact, either out of caution or indifference. The zoo hypothesis, for instance, posits that advanced civilizations deliberately refrain from interfering with younger, less developed species, much like humans observe animals in a protected reserve. This idea raises intriguing questions about the ethics of exploration and the responsibilities of technologically superior beings. The implications of the Fermi paradox extend far beyond the realm of astronomy, touching on existential questions about humanity's role in the universe. If we are truly alone, then our existence takes on an almost sacred significance. We become not just inhabitants of a single planet, but custodians of consciousness in an otherwise indifferent cosmos. Such a realization would demand a profound sense of responsibility, urging us to protect and preserve the fragile miracle of life on Earth. Conversely, if advanced civilizations do exist but remain hidden, the paradox invites us to reflect on the nature of intelligence and communication. Are we looking for the wrong signs? Do alien species use technologies so advanced that we cannot recognize them? Or are they simply uninterested in engaging with lesser developed species, viewing us as insignificant specks in the grand tapestry of the universe? The Fermi paradox also challenges our understanding of progress and ambition. Humanity has long dreamed of reaching the stars, driven by a desire to explore, discover, and connect. Yet, the silence of the cosmos forces us to confront the possibility that such aspirations may be futile or at least far more difficult to achieve than we imagine. It reminds us of the limitations of human perception and technology, urging humility in the face of the unknown. At the same time, the paradox inspires hope. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, and the search for extraterrestrial life continues to fuel scientific innovation and philosophical inquiry. Projects like the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, SETI, and missions to explore potentially habitable exoplanets represent humanity's relentless pursuit of answers, even in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. As we sit with the implications of the Fermi paradox, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of all things. The question of whether we are alone in the universe touches not only on science, but also on philosophy, ethics, and spirituality. It invites us to ponder the nature of existence itself. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be intelligent? And what does it mean to belong to a cosmos that is both vast and mysterious? These reflections deepen our appreciation for the beauty and complexity of the universe, even as they leave us yearning for answers that may never come. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to the mysteries of the cosmos. They also manifest in the abstract realms of mathematics, where logic and intuition collide in ways that defy common sense. Imagine a mathematical paradox that allows you to duplicate objects infinitely. This is the essence of the Banach-Tarski paradox, a mind-bending concept that challenges our understanding of volume, infinity, and the very foundations of mathematics. Let us delve into this strange and fascinating world, where the impossible becomes possible and the boundaries of reason are stretched to their limits. The Banach-Tarski paradox: doubling objects without adding material. What if I told you it's possible to take a solid ball, cut it into pieces, and reassemble those pieces into two identical balls without adding any material? At first glance, this proposition seems absurd, defying not only common sense, but also the fundamental principles of physics and geometry. Yet, this is precisely the claim made by the Banach-Tarski paradox, one of the most perplexing and counterintuitive results in mathematics. While purely theoretical and impossible to replicate in the physical world, this paradox challenges our intuitive understanding of volume, matter, and infinity, inviting us to explore the boundaries of human perception and the abstract nature of mathematical reasoning. The Banach-Tarski paradox arises from the intersection of set theory, geometry, and the concept of infinity. In simple terms, the paradox demonstrates that, under certain conditions, it is possible to divide a solid object, a sphere for instance, into a finite number of non-overlapping pieces, and then rearrange those pieces to form two spheres, each identical in size and volume to the original. This result appears to violate the conservation of volume, a cornerstone of classical geometry, which states that the total volume of an object should remain constant unless material is added or removed. However, the Banach-Tarski paradox achieves this feat not through sleight of hand or physical manipulation, but through the abstract tools of mathematics, particularly the axiom of choice and the properties of infinite sets. To understand how this paradox works, we must delve into the realm of non-measurable sets. In standard geometry, objects are assumed to have well-defined volumes that can be calculated using familiar formulas. However, the Banach-Tarski paradox relies on dividing the original sphere into pieces that are so irregular and fragmented that they cannot be assigned a meaningful volume. These non-measurable sets exist within the framework of abstract mathematics, but have no direct analog in the physical world. By carefully rearranging these pieces, using rotations and translations, the paradox shows that it is theoretically possible to reconstruct two identical spheres from one. This process hinges on the peculiar properties of infinity, where infinite collections of points can be manipulated in ways that defy our everyday intuition. While the Banach-Tarski paradox is undeniably fascinating, it is important to note that it has no practical application in the physical universe. The paradox operates within the realm of pure mathematics, where idealized assumptions and abstractions reign supreme. In the real world, objects are composed of discrete atoms and molecules, making it impossible to divide them into the infinitely intricate pieces required by the paradox. Furthermore, the axiom of choice, a foundational principle used in the proof, remains controversial among mathematicians because it allows for the existence of sets that cannot be explicitly constructed or visualized. Despite these limitations, the Banach-Tarski paradox serves as a powerful reminder of the vast gulf between mathematical abstraction and physical reality. The implications of the Banach-Tarski paradox extend far beyond its immediate context, raising profound questions about the nature of infinity, perception, and the limits of human understanding. Infinity, in particular, plays a central role in the paradox, revealing the counterintuitive behavior of infinite sets. For example, in the realm of mathematics, it is possible to split an infinite set into two subsets, each of which is itself infinite and equivalent in size to the original set. This property lies at the heart of the Banach-Tarski paradox, where the infinite divisibility of points within a sphere enables the creation of two identical spheres from one. Such insights challenge our intuitive notions of continuity and discreteness, forcing us to confront the limitations of our sensory and cognitive frameworks. Moreover, the paradox invites us to reflect on the relationship between mathematics and the physical world. Mathematics has long served as a powerful tool for describing and predicting natural phenomena, from the motion of planets to the behavior of subatomic particles. Yet, the Banach-Tarski paradox highlights the extent to which mathematical models can diverge from physical reality. It reminds us that while mathematics provides a language for exploring the universe, it also transcends the constraints of the tangible world, venturing into realms that are purely conceptual. This duality underscores the importance of distinguishing between theoretical constructs and empirical observations, even as we marvel at the elegance and ingenuity of abstract reasoning. The Banach-Tarski paradox also raises intriguing philosophical questions about the nature of reality itself. Could there exist principles governing the cosmos that are beyond our comprehension? If so, how might these principles differ from the laws of physics as we currently understand them? The paradox suggests that reality may operate according to rules that are fundamentally alien to human intuition, challenging us to remain open to possibilities that defy conventional logic. It encourages humility in the face of the unknown, reminding us that our understanding of the universe is always provisional and subject to revision. As we sit with the implications of the Banach-Tarski paradox, we are reminded of the profound beauty and mystery inherent in mathematics. The paradox exemplifies the power of abstract thought to push the boundaries of what we consider possible, even as it reveals the limitations of our perceptual and conceptual frameworks. It invites us to embrace the wonder of discovery, to revel in the interplay between logic and imagination, and to remain curious about the infinite possibilities that lie beyond the horizon of human understanding. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that transformation and identity are themes that resonate across disciplines from mathematics to philosophy. What happens when something changes so much that it no longer resembles its original form? This question lies at the heart of the Ship of Theseus, a paradox that explores the nature of identity, continuity, and change. Let us delve into this timeless puzzle, where the boundaries between permanence and transformation blur into a tapestry of existential reflection. The Ship of Theseus. When does something stop being itself? Imagine replacing every plank of a wooden ship over time. At what point does it stop being the same ship? And if you reassemble the old planks into a new ship, which one is the original? This thought experiment, known as the Ship of Theseus, has fascinated philosophers for centuries, serving as a lens through which we explore the nature of identity and continuity. At its core, the paradox challenges us to consider whether an object, or even a person, remains fundamentally the same when all its components are gradually replaced. The implications of this question ripple outward, touching on everything from material objects to personal identity, and forcing us to confront the tension between permanence and change. The Ship of Theseus begins with a seemingly simple premise, a wooden ship that undergoes repairs over time. As each plank deteriorates, it is replaced with a new one, until eventually, none of the original materials remain. Is it still the same ship? Intuitively, most people would say yes. It occupies the same form, serves the same function, and retains the same name. Yet, if none of the original components remain, can it truly be considered identical to the ship that first set sail? To complicate matters further, imagine collecting all the discarded planks and using them to construct a second ship. Which of the two ships, the repaired one or the reconstructed one, is the real Ship of Theseus? This scenario forces us to grapple with the essence of identity. Is it tied to the physical components of an object, its structure, its history, or something else entirely? The paradox extends beyond wooden ships, offering a framework for exploring the nature of identity in broader contexts. Consider the human body, which undergoes constant change at the cellular level. Every cell in your body is replaced over time, meaning that the physical you of today is not the same as the you of 10 years ago. Yet, despite these changes, we maintain a sense of continuity, a feeling that we are, in some fundamental way, the same person. What accounts for this sense of self? Is it rooted in our memories, our consciousness, or some ineffable essence that transcends physical transformation? The ship of Theseus invites us to reflect on the fluidity of identity, challenging the assumption that permanence is a prerequisite for continuity. Philosophers have long debated the implications of the ship of Theseus for personal identity. One perspective, rooted in essentialism, argues that identity is tied to an unchanging essence, an intrinsic property that defines an entity regardless of external changes. From this viewpoint, the ship of Theseus remains the same ship because its essence persists, even as its physical components are replaced. However, this raises the question of what constitutes an essence and how it can be identified. Another perspective, associated with empiricism, suggests that identity is a function of perception and convention. According to this view, the ship's identity is determined by how it is perceived and categorized by observers. If people continue to refer to the repaired ship as the ship of Theseus, then it remains the same by virtue of linguistic and social continuity. The paradox also intersects with questions about memory and experience. Our sense of self is deeply intertwined with our memories, thoughts, and experiences, all of which evolve over time. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago, given that your cells, thoughts, and experiences have changed? If so, what accounts for this continuity? Some argue that personal identity is preserved through the narrative we construct about our lives, a story that connects past, present, and future selves into a coherent whole. Others contend that identity is inherently fragmented, shaped by the interplay of biology, environment, and choice. The ship of Theseus resonates with these debates, reminding us that identity is not a static entity, but a dynamic process, constantly reshaped by the forces of change. The implications of the ship of Theseus extend beyond philosophy, influencing fields such as ethics, law, and technology. In ethics, the paradox raises questions about responsibility and accountability. If a person's identity evolves over time, to what extent should they be held responsible for actions committed by their past self? In law, the paradox challenges traditional notions of ownership and authenticity. For example, if an antique is restored using modern materials, does it retain its value as an authentic artifact? In technology, the paradox takes on new relevance as advancements in artificial intelligence and biotechnology blur the boundaries between natural and artificial, human and machine. These applications underscore the enduring relevance of the ship of Theseus, demonstrating its ability to illuminate complex issues in diverse domains. As we sit with the implications of the ship of Theseus, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of existence. The paradox challenges us to embrace the fluidity of identity, recognizing that change is not a threat to continuity, but an integral part of it. It invites us to find meaning in transformation, to see ourselves not as fixed entities, but as evolving narratives shaped by the passage of time. By contemplating the boundaries between permanence and change, we deepen our appreciation for the complexity and beauty of life, even as we acknowledge the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that identity and belief are deeply intertwined. What happens when we apply the logic of identity to questions of faith and existence? This brings us to Pascal's wager, a famous dilemma that explores the intersection of reason, belief, and the stakes of eternal salvation. What if betting on God's existence could save your soul? Let us examine this next, delving into a paradox that challenges the boundaries of rationality and faith. Pascal's wager, betting on God's existence. Should you believe in God, not because you're convinced, but because it's the safer bet? In this provocative question lies at the heart of one of philosophy's most enduring dilemmas, Pascal's wager, proposed by the 17th century French philosopher and mathematician Blaise Pascal. This thought experiment challenges us to approach questions of faith through the lens of rational decision-making. At its core, Pascal's wager argues that believing in God offers infinite potential reward, eternal happiness, with minimal risk, while disbelief risks infinite punishment, eternal damnation. Even if the odds of God's existence are slim, the stakes make belief the more rational choice. Yet, as compelling as this reasoning may seem, it also raises profound questions about the nature of faith, reason and morality, sparking debates that continue to resonate across centuries. Pascal's argument is rooted in a pragmatic approach to belief, framing the question of God's existence as a wager rather than a matter of certainty. He begins by acknowledging the limits of human knowledge. We cannot definitively prove or disprove God's existence. Faced with this uncertainty, Pascal suggests that we weigh the potential outcomes of belief and disbelief. If God exists, and you choose to believe, the reward is infinite, eternal happiness in heaven. If God exists, and you choose not to believe, the punishment is equally infinite, eternal suffering in hell. Conversely, if God does not exist, the consequences of belief or disbelief are negligible. At worst, you might have lived a life constrained by religious practices that ultimately hold no eternal significance. From this perspective, the scales tip decisively in favor of belief, as the potential gains far outweigh the risks. The brilliance of Pascal's wager lies in its application of probability theory to matters of faith. By treating belief as a calculated gamble, Pascal reframes religion not as a question of conviction, but as a strategic decision. In mathematical terms, even if the probability of God's existence is infinitesimally small, the infinite rewards and punishments associated with belief and disbelief make the expected value of belief overwhelmingly positive. This reasoning aligns with Pascal's broader intellectual pursuits, which sought to bridge the gap between reason and faith, science and theology. For Pascal, belief in God was not merely a spiritual imperative, but a rational response to the uncertainties of existence. Despite its logical appeal, Pascal's wager has faced significant criticism from philosophers, theologians, and skeptics alike. One common objection is that faith should not, and cannot, be reduced to a pragmatic calculation. Critics argue that genuine belief requires sincerity, conviction, and emotional engagement, none of which can be manufactured through a cost-benefit analysis. Can one truly choose to believe in God simply because it seems like the safer option? Moreover, Pascal's wager assumes a binary framework, belief in God versus disbelief, without accounting for the diversity of religious traditions and conceptions of the divine. What if one bets on the wrong God, adhering to a faith whose deity does not exist while neglecting the true one? The wager's logic falters in the face of such complexities, highlighting its limitations as a universal prescription for belief. Another critique focuses on the ethical implications of calculated belief. Critics contend that reducing faith to a self-interested gamble undermines its moral and spiritual dimensions. Religion, for many, is not about hedging bets, but about cultivating virtues, fostering community, and seeking truth. By framing belief as a strategic decision, Pascal's wager risks trivializing the profound commitments and sacrifices that often accompany genuine faith. Furthermore, some argue that a deity who rewards insincere belief or punishes honest doubt would be unworthy of worship. These objections challenge the moral coherence of Pascal's reasoning, suggesting that faith must be grounded in authenticity rather than expediency. Despite these criticisms, Pascal's wager remains a powerful catalyst for reflection on the interplay between reason, faith, and uncertainty. It invites us to consider how we navigate decisions in the absence of definitive evidence, whether in matters of religion or other domains of life. The wager underscores the importance of weighing risks and rewards, particularly when the stakes are high and the outcomes uncertain. It also highlights the tension between intellectual skepticism and existential longing, reminding us that questions of faith often transcend the realm of pure reason. For many, Pascal's wager serves not as a definitive answer, but as a starting point for deeper exploration, a reminder that belief, like life itself, is fraught with ambiguity and complexity. As we sit with the implications of Pascal's wager, we are reminded of the profound challenges inherent in grappling with uncertainty. The wager forces us to confront the limits of human knowledge, the weight of infinite possibilities, and the delicate balance between reason and faith. It invites us to reflect on the values that guide our decisions, the motivations behind our beliefs, and the stakes of our choices, both temporal and eternal. By contemplating these questions, we deepen our understanding of what it means to live with doubt, hope, and the enduring quest for meaning. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that moral dilemmas, like questions of faith, often resist simple solutions. Consider a scenario where doing the right thing isn't so clear-cut. Welcome to the trolley problem, a thought experiment that plunges us into the murky waters of ethics, forcing us to confront the complexities of choice and consequence. Let us delve into this moral quandary, where the line between right and wrong blurs, and the weight of our decisions reverberates far beyond the moment of action. The trolley problem, ethics versus logic. A runaway trolley is headed toward 5 people tied to the tracks. You can pull a lever to divert it, saving them, but killing one person on the other track. What do? This haunting scenario, known as the trolley problem, has captivated philosophers, ethicists, and thinkers for decades, serving as a lens through which we explore the complexities of moral decision-making. At its core, the trolley problem forces us to confront an impossible choice, pitting utilitarianism, the philosophy of maximizing overall good, against deontological ethics, the adherence to moral rules and principles. It reveals not only the tension between logic and emotion, but also the profound difficulty of navigating moral dilemmas, in a world where perfect solutions often remain elusive. The ethical dilemma arises from the stark contrast between the two philosophical frameworks. From a utilitarian perspective, the choice seems clear: pull the lever. By doing so, you minimize harm, sacrificing one life to save 5. This approach prioritizes the greatest good for the greatest number, treating morality as a mathematical equation, where outcomes are weighed and optimized. In this view, the decision to pull the lever is not just permissible, but morally obligatory, as it results in a net gain of lives saved. However, deontological ethics challenges this reasoning by emphasizing the importance of adhering to moral rules, regardless of the consequences. From this standpoint, actively pulling the lever makes you complicit in the death of the individual on the other track. Even though your intention is to save lives, the act of deliberately causing harm, even to achieve a greater good, violates a fundamental moral principle: the sanctity of human life. The trolley problem exposes the limitations of both frameworks, revealing how difficult it is to balance logic and emotion in moral decisions. On one hand, utilitarianism risks reducing human lives to mere numbers, stripping away the emotional weight of individual suffering in pursuit of a cold calculus. On the other hand, deontological ethics can seem rigid and impractical, demanding adherence to moral absolutes even when they lead to worse outcomes. The tension between these perspectives mirrors the inner conflict many experience when faced with difficult choices: the desire to do what is right versus the urge to achieve the best possible result. The trolley problem forces us to grapple with these contradictions, reminding us that morality is rarely black and white. Beyond its philosophical implications, the trolley problem has real-world applications, influencing fields as diverse as artificial intelligence programming and medical ethics. In the realm of AI, for instance, the problem serves as a framework for addressing ethical dilemmas in autonomous systems. Imagine a self-driving car confronted with an unavoidable accident. Should it prioritize the safety of its passengers, even if it means endangering pedestrians? Or should it sacrifice the passengers to minimize overall harm? These scenarios, while hypothetical, highlight the challenges of encoding moral decision-making into machines, where human intuition and empathy cannot intervene. Similarly, in medical ethics, the trolley problem resonates in situations like organ allocation. Should a doctor prioritize saving multiple patients by harvesting organs from a single healthy individual, or adhere to the principle of non-maleficence, even if it results in greater loss of life? These questions underscore the messy and often heartbreaking nature of morality when faced with impossible choices. The trolley problem also invites us to reflect on the role of emotion in ethical decision-making. While logic and reason provide a framework for analyzing consequences and principles, emotions often guide our moral instincts. For instance, many people feel a visceral discomfort at the thought of actively pulling the lever, even if they recognize it as the logical choice. This emotional response reflects a deeper truth about human psychology. We are not purely rational beings. Our moral intuitions are shaped by empathy, guilt, fear, and a host of other emotions that defy easy categorization. The trolley problem reminds us that morality is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a deeply human experience, influenced by the interplay of reason and emotion. As we sit with the implications of the trolley problem, we are reminded of the profound complexity of moral decision-making. The dilemma challenges us to confront the limits of ethical frameworks, recognizing that no single philosophy can provide definitive answers to every situation. It invites us to embrace the messiness of morality, acknowledging that difficult choices often require balancing competing values and accepting imperfect outcomes. By contemplating the trolley problem, we deepen our understanding of what it means to live ethically in a world where clarity is rare and compromise is inevitable. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that ethical puzzles, while challenging, pale in comparison to the broader limitations of human knowledge itself. Beyond the realm of moral dilemmas lies a more fundamental question: can we ever truly know everything? Gödel's Incompleteness theorems offer a humbling reminder that some truths will always elude us, no matter how advanced our understanding becomes. Let us unravel this next, delving into the boundaries of human cognition and the mysteries that lie beyond the reach of reason. Gödel's Incompleteness theorems. Limits of mathematical truth. Mathematics is often seen as the ultimate foundation of truth, a pristine realm where logic reigns supreme, and every question has a definitive answer. For centuries, mathematicians and philosophers alike believed that with enough time, effort, and ingenuity, all mathematical truths could be uncovered within a single unified framework. But in 1931, Austrian logician Kurt Gödel shattered this dream with his groundbreaking incompleteness theorems. Gödel demonstrated that even within the most rigorous and consistent formal systems, there exist statements that cannot be proven true or false using the system's own axioms. This revelation not only exposed the inherent limitations of mathematics, but also challenged humanity's deepest assumptions about the nature of knowledge, truth, and certainty. At its core, Gödel's first incompleteness theorem asserts that in any consistent formal system, capable of expressing basic arithmetic, there are propositions that are undecedable, statements that cannot be proven either true or false within the confines of that system. To understand this, imagine a vast library of mathematical rules and axioms, meticulously crafted to describe the universe of numbers. Gödel showed that no matter how comprehensive or elegant this system might be, it will always contain gaps, questions it cannot answer about itself. These undecedable statements are not flaws in the system, rather they are an intrinsic feature of any sufficiently complex formal structure. Gödel achieved this insight through a clever technique known as self-reference, constructing a statement within the system that essentially declares, this statement cannot be proven. If the statement is true, then it cannot be proven within the system, revealing the system's incompleteness. If it is false, then the system is inconsistent, as it would allow the proof of a falsehood. Either way, the system cannot be both complete and consistent, a profound limitation that Gödel's work laid bare. The implications of Gödel's theorems extend far beyond the abstract world of mathematics, resonating deeply with philosophy, science, and our understanding of human cognition. For centuries, thinkers like David Hilbert had dreamed of creating a theory of everything, a universal framework that could encompass all mathematical truths and resolve every conceivable question. Gödel's work dashed this hope, demonstrating that such a theory is inherently unattainable. His findings suggest that the pursuit of knowledge is not a finite journey toward ultimate resolution, but an infinite spiral of discovery, where each answer reveals new questions and mysteries. This realization undermines the classical ideal of a fully comprehensible universe governed by immutable laws, replacing it with a humbler vision of reality as a tapestry woven with threads of uncertainty and incompleteness. Gödel's second incompleteness theorem further deepens this humbling perspective. It states that no consistent formal system can prove its own consistency. In other words, if a system is indeed consistent, we must look outside of it to verify this fact. This theorem highlights the recursive nature of knowledge, where understanding one layer of reality requires stepping into another, higher layer. It also underscores the fragility of certainty, reminding us that even the most robust frameworks rest on assumptions that cannot be definitively validated from within. Together, Gödel's theorems challenge the Enlightenment-era belief in the power of reason to unlock all secrets, suggesting instead that some mysteries may forever remain beyond the reach of human comprehension. The philosophical ramifications of Gödel's work ripple outward, influencing fields as diverse as computer science, artificial intelligence, and cognitive psychology. In computer science, for instance, Gödel's insights have shaped our understanding of computational limits, informing foundational concepts like Turing machines and the halting problem. These ideas reveal that there are tasks no algorithm can perform, problems no program can solve, a reflection of the same incompleteness that Gödel identified in mathematics. Similarly, in artificial intelligence, Gödel's theorems raise profound questions about the boundaries of machine reasoning. Can a machine ever achieve true understanding, or is it doomed to operate within the constraints of its programming, unable to transcend its own axiomatic framework? These questions echo Gödel's broader challenge to the notion of completeness, reminding us that intelligence, whether human or artificial, is inherently bounded. On a more existential level, Gödel's theorems invite us to reflect on the nature of truth and the limits of human perception. If even the most precise and logical systems cannot capture all aspects of reality, what does this say about our ability to understand the universe? Gödel's work suggests that the quest for knowledge is not a linear progression toward finality, but a dynamic interplay between discovery and mystery. It encourages us to embrace uncertainty as an essential part of existence, recognizing that unanswered questions are not failures, but invitations to explore further. By confronting the boundaries of logic, Gödel reminds us that the unknown is not a void to be feared, but a horizon to be embraced, a space where imagination and curiosity can flourish. As we sit with the implications of Gödel's incompleteness theorems, we are reminded of the profound beauty and complexity of the human endeavor to make sense of the world. These theorems do not diminish the value of mathematics or logic, rather they elevate them by revealing their depth and richness. They challenge us to remain humble in the face of mystery, to recognize that the more we learn, the more there is to discover. By contemplating Gödel's insights, we deepen our appreciation for the interplay between order and chaos, certainty and uncertainty, finitude and infinity. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that the boundaries of logic are mirrored in the strange and counterintuitive phenomena of the physical universe. Just as Gödel revealed the limits of formal systems, Albert Einstein's theory of relativity exposes the quirks and paradoxes of time itself. Enter the twin paradox, a thought experiment that challenges our intuitive understanding of time, motion, and the fabric of space-time. Let us delve into this cosmic enigma, where the flow of time becomes as malleable as the curves of the universe itself. The twin paradox, relativity and aging. If one twin travels near light speed, while the other stays on Earth, they'll age at different rates. How is this possible? This question lies at the heart of one of the most fascinating thought experiments in physics, the twin paradox. Rooted in Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, this paradox challenges our intuitive understanding of time, motion, and the nature of reality itself. At first glance, the idea that time could pass differently for two individuals seems absurd, defying the everyday experience of time as a constant universal flow. Yet, Einstein's groundbreaking insights into the fabric of space-time reveal that time is not absolute but relative, a malleable dimension shaped by velocity, gravity, and motion. The twin paradox serves as a vivid illustration of these principles, exposing the counterintuitive nature of the universe and forcing us to rethink our assumptions about existence. The paradox unfolds as follows. Imagine a pair of twins, one of whom embarks on a journey through space at velocities approaching the speed of light, while the other remains on Earth. According to Einstein's special theory of relativity, time slows down for objects moving at such high speeds, a phenomenon known as time dilation. From the perspective of the twin on Earth, the traveling sibling experiences time more slowly. Fewer years pass for them during their journey than for the stationary twin. When the traveler returns, they find themselves significantly younger than their sibling, who has aged normally in Earth's frame of reference. This outcome creates a seemingly paradoxical situation. If both twins perceive themselves as stationary and the other as moving, why does only the traveling twin experience time dilation? The resolution to this apparent contradiction lies in the asymmetry of their experiences. While the twin on Earth remains in an inertial frame of reference, moving at a constant velocity or being at rest, the traveling twin undergoes acceleration and deceleration during their journey. These changes in motion break the symmetry between the two frames of reference, making the traveling twins' experience of time distinct from that of their sibling. General relativity, which accounts for the effects of acceleration and gravity, further clarifies this discrepancy. Together, these theories demonstrate that the traveling twins' slower aging is not a paradox, but a natural consequence of the interplay between motion, time, and space-time. The implications of the twin paradox extend far beyond its theoretical framework, challenging our everyday notions of time and simultaneity. In our daily lives, time appears to be a uniform, unchanging backdrop against which events unfold. We measure it with clocks, calendars, and schedules, assuming that everyone experiences its passage in the same way. Yet, the twin paradox reveals that time is far more fluid and context-dependent than we imagine. It shows that the flow of time is influenced by factors such as velocity and gravitational fields, bending and warping in ways that defy common sense. This realization forces us to confront the limitations of human perception, reminding us that our intuitive grasp of reality is shaped by the narrow slice of experience accessible to us. Moreover, the twin paradox invites us to reflect on the philosophical dimensions of space-time. If time is relative, what does it mean to say that something happened or exists? Does the past still exist, or is it erased once it passes? Is the future predetermined, waiting to unfold, or is it a blank canvas shaped by our choices? These questions blur the boundaries between physics and metaphysics, challenging us to reconcile the scientific description of reality with our subjective experience of it. The paradox also raises intriguing possibilities about the nature of aging and mortality. If time dilation can slow the aging process, could advanced technologies someday harness these principles to extend human life? Such speculations underscore the profound implications of relativity, bridging the gap between theoretical physics and the existential concerns of humanity. In addition to its philosophical resonance, the twin paradox has practical applications in modern science and technology. For instance, the principles of time dilation are not merely abstract concepts, but observable phenomena that affect our world. Satellites orbiting Earth, such as those used in GPS systems, must account for relativistic effects to maintain accurate timekeeping. Without corrections for both special and general relativity, the clocks on these satellites would drift out of sync with those on the ground, leading to significant errors in navigation. Similarly, experiments with high-speed particles in particle accelerators confirm the predictions of relativity, demonstrating that time dilation occurs even at microscopic scales. These real-world examples highlight the tangible impact of Einstein's theories, reinforcing their validity and relevance. As we sit with the implications of the twin paradox, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of time, motion, and existence. The paradox challenges us to embrace the strangeness of the universe, recognizing that reality often defies our expectations. It invites us to remain curious and humble, acknowledging that the mysteries of space-time may forever elude complete comprehension. By contemplating the twin paradox, we deepen our appreciation for the elegance and complexity of Einstein's vision, which continues to inspire wonder and inquiry. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that relativity bends not only time, but also definitions and perceptions. Language, like physics, can blur the boundaries of meaning, creating paradoxes that challenge our understanding of the world. Consider the Sorites paradox. When does a heap stop being a heap? This thought experiment delves into the subtleties of language and logic, revealing how definitions can shift and dissolve under scrutiny. Let us explore this linguistic enigma, where clarity gives way to ambiguity, and precision dissolves into paradox. The Sorites paradox. How many grains make a heap? If you remove one grain of sand from a heap, it's still a heap. Repeat this process. When does it stop being a heap? This seemingly simple question lies at the heart of one of philosophy's most enduring puzzles, the Sorites paradox, also known as the paradox of the heap. This thought experiment probes the boundaries of language, logic, and human perception, revealing the inherent vagueness in our definitions and classifications. At first glance, the paradox may appear trivial, a playful exercise in semantics, but upon closer examination, it exposes profound challenges to binary thinking and forces us to confront the fluidity of concepts that we often take for granted. The paradox begins with a straightforward premise. A heap of sand is composed of many grains. If we remove one grain, the heap remains a heap, because the loss of a single grain is negligible. If we repeat this process, removing one grain at a time, the heap gradually diminishes in size. Yet, at no specific point, does it seem reasonable to declare that the heap has ceased to be a heap. There is no definitive moment when the transition occurs. Instead, the change happens imperceptibly, blurring the line between what constitutes a heap and what does not. This paradox arises from the vagueness of the term heap, which lacks precise boundaries. Unlike numerical or empirical concepts, such as 3 grains or a kilogram of sand, the notion of a heap is inherently subjective, dependent on context and interpretation. The Sorites paradox highlights a fundamental tension in language and classification. Human communication relies on shared understandings of words and concepts, yet these understandings are often imprecise. Words like heap, tall or rich operate on spectrums rather than fixed thresholds, making them resistant to rigid categorization. The paradox forces us to confront this ambiguity, challenging the assumption that all concepts can be neatly divided into binary categories of true or false, present or absent. Instead, it suggests that many aspects of reality exist in shades of gray, defying simplistic definitions. For instance, if we attempt to define a heap by specifying a minimum number of grains, say 10,000, what happens when we remove one grain, leaving 9,999? Is it no longer a heap? Such arbitrary thresholds feel unsatisfying, as they fail to capture the nuanced nature of the concept itself. The implications of the Sorites paradox extend far beyond the realm of sand and heaps, influencing fields as diverse as ethics, law, and artificial intelligence. In ethics, for example, the paradox mirrors debates about moral thresholds and incremental changes. Consider the question of when life begins or ends. Is there a precise moment when a fetus becomes a person, or when a terminally ill patient transitions from life to death? These questions resist clear answers, reflecting the same kind of vagueness that underpins the Sorites paradox. Similarly, in law, the paradox raises questions about how to define legal thresholds. For instance, what constitutes reasonable doubt in a court of law? Is it a matter of probability, intuition, or societal consensus? The absence of sharp boundaries complicates decision-making, requiring judges and lawmakers to navigate the gray areas between certainty and ambiguity. In the realm of artificial intelligence, the Sorites paradox underscores the challenges of programming machines to interpret vague or context-dependent concepts. Computers excel at processing binary data, ones and zeros, but struggle with the subtleties of human language. Teaching an AI to recognize whether something qualifies as a heap, or whether a color is red versus orange, requires navigating the spectrum of possibilities that lie between extremes. This challenge highlights the limitations of computational systems in replicating human cognition, which effortlessly navigates ambiguity through intuition and experience. The paradox serves as a reminder that language and thought are deeply intertwined, shaped by cultural, historical, and individual factors that defy easy codification. The Sorites paradox also invites us to reflect on the broader philosophical implications of vagueness. It challenges the classical logic of bivalence, the idea that every statement must be either true or false, and suggests that some propositions occupy a middle ground, where truth is partial or context-dependent. This perspective aligns with alternative logical frameworks, such as fuzzy logic, which allows for degrees of truth rather than strict dichotomies. By embracing the spectrum of possibilities, we gain a richer understanding of reality, recognizing that many phenomena resist reduction to binary categories. For instance, consider the concept of happiness. Is someone happy or unhappy at any given moment, or do they exist somewhere along a continuum of emotional states? The Sorites paradox encourages us to embrace this complexity, fostering a more nuanced and empathetic view of the world. As we sit with the implications of the Sorites paradox, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of language, perception, and reality. The paradox challenges us to remain humble in the face of ambiguity, acknowledging that our definitions and classifications are tools for navigating the world, not absolute truths. It invites us to embrace the fluidity of concepts, recognizing that boundaries are often less rigid than they appear. By contemplating the paradox of the heap, we deepen our appreciation for the subtleties of human thought and the intricate interplay between precision and vagueness. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that language and causality intersect in fascinating ways. Just as the Sorites paradox reveals the fuzziness of definitions, the Bootstrap paradox delves into the complexities of causality and time loops. Imagine a scenario where an object or piece of information exists without origin, perpetuating itself through an endless cycle of cause and effect. Let us explore this temporal enigma, where the boundaries of beginnings and endings blur into an infinite loop of possibility. The Bootstrap paradox, loops in time. Where did the information come from, if it's sent back in time and becomes the source of itself? This question lies at the heart of one of the most mind-bending paradoxes in the realm of time travel. The Bootstrap paradox, named after the phrase, pulling oneself up by one's bootstraps. This paradox challenges our understanding of causality, creation, and the very nature of existence. At its core, the Bootstrap paradox describes a scenario where an object, piece of information, or event is trapped in a causal loop with no discernible origin. It defies the traditional linear progression of cause and effect, suggesting instead that some things might exist outside the constraints of temporal logic. This paradox not only stretches the boundaries of physics, but also raises profound philosophical questions about the nature of creativity, originality, and the origins of knowledge. To understand the Bootstrap paradox, consider the following thought experiment. Imagine a composer who receives a mysterious envelope containing sheet music for a symphony. Intrigued by its brilliance, the composer decides to transcribe and publish the work under their own name. Years later, as the symphony gains fame, the composer travels back in time and delivers the same sheet music to their past self, the very envelope that inspired them in the first place. The question arises, where did the symphony originate? If the composer received the music from their future self, and their future self obtained it from their past self, then who actually composed it? The symphony appears to exist in a closed loop, with no identifiable creator or moment of inception. This paradox highlights the peculiarities of time loops, where the concepts of beginning and end dissolve into an infinite cycle. In a traditional causal framework, every effect has a cause, and every creation has an origin. The Bootstrap paradox disrupts this narrative by introducing the possibility of self-sustaining loops, events or objects that perpetuate themselves without an external source. Such scenarios challenge our assumptions about the nature of creation and originality. If the symphony in the example was never truly composed, but merely exists as part of a perpetual loop, can it be considered a creative work? Does originality lose its meaning in a universe where some things transcend linear causality? These questions force us to reconsider the role of human agency in the act of creation, blurring the lines between invention and discovery. The implications of the Bootstrap paradox extend far beyond the realm of science fiction, influencing fields such as theoretical physics, philosophy, and even the arts. In physics, the paradox aligns with certain interpretations of time travel and space-time, particularly those involving closed time-like curves, CTCs. CTCs are hypothetical paths through space-time that loop back on themselves, allowing for the possibility of traveling to one's own past. While CTCs remain speculative, they provide a mathematical framework for exploring the logical consequences of time loops, including the Bootstrap paradox. Some physicists argue that such loops could theoretically exist within the fabric of the universe, governed by the laws of quantum mechanics and general relativity. Others contend that the paradox highlights inconsistencies in our understanding of time, suggesting that either time travel is impossible, or that additional constraints prevent paradoxical scenarios from occurring. Philosophically, the Bootstrap paradox invites us to reflect on the nature of existence and the origins of knowledge. If an object or idea can exist without a definitive origin, what does this say about the concept of authorship? For instance, consider a scientist who discovers a groundbreaking formula after receiving a manuscript from their future self. The formula revolutionizes technology, yet its ultimate source remains shrouded in mystery. Does the scientist deserve credit for the discovery, even though they played no role in its initial creation? Or does the absence of an origin render the notion of credit meaningless? These questions resonate deeply in an age where artificial intelligence and machine learning increasingly blur the boundaries between human and machine-generated content. The Bootstrap paradox serves as a reminder that innovation often involves collaboration across time and space, challenging traditional notions of individual genius. In addition to its intellectual resonance, the Bootstrap paradox holds cultural significance, inspiring countless works of literature, film and art. Stories like Robert Heinlein's All You Zombies, or films such as Predestination, explore the psychological and existential implications of living within a causal loop. These narratives often depict characters grappling with their lack of agency, questioning whether their actions have meaning in a universe where outcomes are predetermined. Yet, they also celebrate the beauty of interconnectedness, highlighting the ways in which individuals contribute to a larger tapestry of existence. By embracing the paradox, these works encourage audiences to find wonder in the mysteries of time, rather than fear in their uncertainties. As we sit with the implications of the Bootstrap paradox, we are reminded of the profound complexity of time and causality. The paradox challenges us to embrace the unknown, recognizing that some questions may never yield definitive answers. It invites us to remain curious and open-minded, acknowledging that reality may operate according to principles far stranger and more intricate than we can currently comprehend. By contemplating the loops and cycles of existence, we deepen our appreciation for the interplay between order and chaos, certainty and ambiguity. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that time loops lead naturally to another profound mystery, one arguably deeper than time itself. Beyond the enigma of causality lies the hard problem of consciousness. How does subjective experience arise from physical processes? This question delves into the very essence of what it means to be aware, inviting us to explore the boundaries of science, philosophy, and the human spirit. Let us delve into this enduring puzzle, where the immaterial meets the material, and the mysteries of the mind unfold before us. The hard problem of consciousness. Why do we experience anything? Close your eyes for a moment. What is it like to see red, feel pain, or hear music? These subjective experiences, what philosophers call qualia, are at the heart of one of the most profound mysteries in human thought, the hard problem of consciousness. While science has made remarkable strides in understanding the mechanics of the brain, how neurons fire, how sensory data is processed, and how neural networks give rise to behavior, it struggles to explain why these processes result in conscious experience. How does physical matter, governed by the laws of chemistry and physics, produce something as intangible and ineffable as awareness? This question lies at the intersection of philosophy, neuroscience, and metaphysics, challenging our understanding of reality itself, and inviting us to grapple with the nature of being. The hard problem of consciousness was first articulated by philosopher David Chalmers in the 1990s, distinguishing it from what he termed the easy problems of consciousness. The easy problems, though far from trivial, involve explaining the mechanisms behind cognitive functions such as perception, memory, and decision-making. These are questions that neuroscience is well equipped to address, as they focus on observable phenomena and measurable processes. For instance, researchers can map the neural pathways involved in vision, or identify the brain regions responsible for language comprehension. However, the hard problem goes deeper, asking why these processes are accompanied by an inner subjective experience at all. Why does the firing of neurons in the visual cortex not only enable us to detect the color red, but also allow us to experience it as a vivid personal sensation? This gap between objective brain activity and subjective awareness remains unbridged, leaving the hard problem unresolved. At its core, the hard problem challenges materialist views of reality, which posit that everything, consciousness included, can ultimately be explained in terms of physical processes. Materialism assumes that consciousness arises as a byproduct of complex neural computations, much like how a computer program emerges from the interactions of hardware and software. Yet, this analogy falls short when applied to subjective experience. A computer may process information and execute tasks, but there is no evidence to suggest that it possesses an inner life, a sense of what it is like to compute. Similarly, while we can describe the brain's electrical activity in great detail, These descriptions fail to capture the essence of what it feels like to be aware. The hard problem forces us to confront the possibility that consciousness might transcend purely material explanations, hinting at a dimension of existence that lies beyond the reach of current scientific paradigms. Philosophers and scientists have proposed various theories to address the hard problem, each offering a different perspective on the relationship between mind and matter. One approach, known as panpsychism, suggests that consciousness is a fundamental property of the universe, akin to space, time, or mass. According to this view, even elementary particles possess some rudimentary form of awareness, which aggregates into the rich tapestry of human consciousness at higher levels of complexity. While panpsychism offers a radical departure from traditional materialism, it raises as many questions as it answers, such as how individual micro-experiences combine to form a unified self. Another theory, integrated information theory, IIT, posits that consciousness arises whenever a system integrates information in a sufficiently complex manner. IIT provides a mathematical framework for quantifying consciousness, yet it does not fully explain why integration should result in subjective experience. The implications of the hard problem extend far beyond the confines of academic debate, touching on existential questions about the nature of reality and humanity's place within it. If consciousness cannot be reduced to physical processes, what does this mean for our understanding of the universe? Could it point to a deeper layer of existence, where mind and matter are intertwined in ways we have yet to comprehend? Or is consciousness an unsolvable mystery, destined to remain forever beyond the limits of human knowledge? These possibilities invite humility and wonder, reminding us that despite our technological advancements and intellectual achievements, we are still profoundly ignorant about some of the most basic aspects of existence. Moreover, the hard problem has practical implications for fields such as artificial intelligence, ethics, and medicine. In AI research, for example, the challenge of creating machines with genuine awareness mirrors the difficulties of explaining human consciousness. If we cannot account for our own subjective experience, how can we hope to replicate it in silicon? Similarly, in medical ethics, the hard problem underscores the importance of respecting the dignity of conscious beings, whether human or non-human. It challenges us to consider not just the outward behaviors of others, but also their inner lives, their capacity to suffer, to rejoice, and to experience the world in ways we may never fully understand. As we sit with the implications of the hard problem, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of science, philosophy, and spirituality. The paradox invites us to embrace the unknown, recognizing that some questions may never yield definitive answers. It encourages us to find beauty in the mystery of consciousness, to marvel at the fact that we are aware beings capable of contemplating our own awareness. By reflecting on the hard problem, we deepen our appreciation for the richness of human experience and the infinite possibilities that lie beyond the horizon of understanding. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that consciousness shapes not only how we perceive the world, but also how we interact with others. Our inner experiences influence the choices we make, particularly in situations where cooperation and self-interest collide. Enter the prisoner's dilemma, a classic thought experiment that explores the tension between individual gain and collective benefit. Let us delve into this moral and strategic puzzle, where the dynamics of trust, betrayal, and mutual advantage reveal the complexities of human relationships. The prisoner's dilemma: cooperation versus self-interest. Two criminals are arrested and interrogated separately. If both stay silent, they'll serve minimal sentences, but if one betrays the other, the betrayer goes free, while the betrayed faces maximum punishment. What would you do? This scenario, known as the prisoner's dilemma, is one of the most famous thought experiments in game theory, offering profound insights into human behavior, trust, and decision-making. At its core, the dilemma explores the tension between individual gain and collective benefit, revealing the complexities of cooperation in a world often driven by self-interest. It serves as a model for understanding not only personal relationships, but also broader societal challenges, from climate change negotiations to economic competition. By contemplating the choices faced by the two prisoners, we gain a deeper appreciation for the fragility of trust and the difficulty of achieving mutually beneficial outcomes. The setup of the prisoner's dilemma is deceptively simple. Two individuals, unable to communicate with each other, must decide whether to cooperate, remain silent, or defect, betray the other. If both choose to cooperate, they receive light sentences, reflecting the value of mutual trust. However, if one defects while the other cooperates, the defector reaps the greatest reward, freedom, while the cooperator suffers the harshest penalty. If both defect, they face moderate punishments, worse than if they had both cooperated, but better than being the sole victim of betrayal. The dilemma lies in the incentives. From an individual perspective, defecting seems like the safest choice, as it minimizes risk regardless of the other person's decision. Yet, when both act out of self-interest, they end up worse off than if they had trusted each other and cooperated. This paradox highlights the inherent conflict between personal advantage and collective well-being. The implications of the prisoner's dilemma extend far beyond the confines of a hypothetical interrogation room, serving as a lens through which we can examine real-world conflicts. Consider global issues such as climate change, where nations must decide whether to reduce carbon emissions, a cooperative action that benefits everyone, or prioritize their own economic interests by continuing harmful practices. Like the prisoners, each nation faces a choice: contribute to the common good, or pursue short-term gains at the expense of others. The dilemma underscores the difficulty of achieving international cooperation, even when the stakes are high and the benefits of collaboration are clear. Similarly, in personal relationships, the prisoner's dilemma mirrors the dynamics of trust and betrayal. Whether in friendships, marriages, or workplace interactions, individuals must navigate the balance between self-interest and mutual support, knowing that acts of selfishness can erode the foundation of trust. This paradox reveals the fragility of trust and the psychological barriers to cooperation. Human beings are wired to seek security and minimize risk, often prioritizing immediate rewards over long-term benefits. In the context of the prisoner's dilemma, this tendency manifests as a reluctance to rely on others, even when cooperation promises better outcomes. Studies in behavioral economics and psychology have shown that people's decisions in such scenarios are influenced by factors such as fear of betrayal, perceived fairness, and social norms. For instance, repeated iterations of the prisoner's dilemma, where players interact multiple times, often lead to higher levels of cooperation, as individuals learn to build trust and anticipate the consequences of their actions. This suggests that trust is not innate, but cultivated through experience and communication, reinforcing the importance of relationships and shared goals in overcoming self-interest. The prisoner's dilemma also forces us to reflect on the fundamental drivers of human behavior. Are we inherently selfish, motivated primarily by self-preservation and personal gain? Or does altruism play a role in shaping our decisions, even when it comes at a cost to ourselves? Philosophers, economists, and evolutionary biologists have debated these questions for centuries, offering competing explanations for the origins of cooperation. Some argue that altruism evolved as a survival strategy, enabling groups to thrive in environments where individual success was insufficient. Others contend that self-interest remains the dominant force, with cooperation emerging only when it aligns with personal benefit. The prisoner's dilemma encapsulates this tension, challenging us to consider how much of our behavior is shaped by rational calculation versus moral intuition. In addition to its philosophical resonance, the prisoner's dilemma has practical applications in fields ranging from business to politics. In competitive markets, for example, companies face a similar dilemma when deciding whether to collaborate on industry standards or undercut rivals to gain a temporary edge. While collaboration fosters innovation and stability, the allure of short-term profits often leads to destructive price wars or monopolistic practices. Similarly, in political systems, the prisoner's dilemma explains why public goods, such as clean air, national defense, or infrastructure, are often underfunded. Individuals and entities may recognize the collective benefits of contributing, but hesitate to act unilaterally, fearing exploitation by others. These examples highlight the pervasive influence of the dilemma, underscoring the need for mechanisms, such as laws, incentives, or social norms, to encourage cooperation and mitigate the risks of defection. As we sit with the implications of the prisoner's dilemma, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of human society. The paradox challenges us to confront the limitations of self-interest, recognizing that true progress often requires sacrifices and compromises. It invites us to reflect on the values that guide our decisions, whether we prioritize personal gain or the greater good, and what those choices reveal about our character and priorities. By contemplating the delicate balance between cooperation and self-interest, we deepen our understanding of the forces that shape human relationships and societal structures. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that decisions are rarely as straightforward as they seem. Sometimes, the logic behind our choices defies common sense, leading us to counterintuitive conclusions. Enter the Monty Hall problem, a probability puzzle that challenges our intuitions and exposes the quirks of human reasoning. Let us delve into this intriguing enigma, where probabilities shift in ways that confound expectation and remind us of the complexity of decision-making. The Monty Hall problem, counterintuitive probability. Imagine you're on a game show with 3 doors. Behind one is a car, behind the others, goats. You pick door 1, and the host, who knows what's behind each door, opens door 3, revealing a goat. Should you stick with your original choice, or switch to door 2? This deceptively simple scenario, known as the Monty Hall problem, has confounded countless individuals and sparked heated debates among mathematicians, statisticians, and casual observers alike. At its core, the problem challenges our understanding of probability, exposing the limits of human intuition and highlighting how easily we misinterpret seemingly straightforward situations. While most people instinctively believe the odds are 50/50 after the reveal, the mathematics tells a different story. Switching doubles your chances of winning the car, from 1/3 to 2/3. This counterintuitive result not only defies common sense, but also serves as a powerful reminder that logic often diverges from gut feelings, and that questioning assumptions can lead to better outcomes. To understand why switching is the optimal strategy, let's break down the mechanics of the problem. Initially, when you choose one of the 3 doors, the probability that the car is behind your chosen door is 1/3, while the combined probability that it lies behind either of the other 2 doors is 2/3. When the host opens one of the remaining doors to reveal a goat, they provide additional information, but crucially, this does not alter the initial probabilities. The door you originally selected still has a 1/3 chance of hiding the car, while the unopened unchosen door now inherits the entire 2/3 probability. In essence, by switching, you are effectively betting on the 2/3 likelihood that your initial guess was wrong, a far more favorable position than sticking with your first choice. Despite the clarity of this mathematical explanation, many people struggle to accept the conclusion. Intuitively, it feels as though the host's action of revealing a goat resets the probabilities, leaving both remaining doors with an equal 50% chance of concealing the car. This misconception arises from a failure to account for the host's role in the scenario. Unlike a random event, the host's decision to open a specific door is deliberate and informed by prior knowledge, which skews the probabilities in ways that defy immediate comprehension. The Monty Hall problem thus underscores the gap between intuitive reasoning and formal logic, illustrating how deeply ingrained cognitive biases can cloud our judgment. The implications of the Monty Hall problem extend far beyond the confines of a hypothetical game show, offering valuable insights into human decision-making and the nature of probability itself. In everyday life, we frequently encounter situations where incomplete or misleading information leads us astray, causing us to rely on flawed assumptions rather than rigorous analysis. For instance, consider medical diagnoses, financial investments, or even weather forecasts, all domains where probabilities play a critical role. Misinterpreting these probabilities can have serious consequences, ranging from poor health outcomes to financial losses. The Monty Hall problem reminds us to approach such scenarios with skepticism and diligence, resisting the temptation to trust our instincts without scrutiny. Moreover, the paradox highlights the importance of revisiting and revising decisions in light of new information. In the game show scenario, sticking with your initial choice reflects a reluctance to abandon sunk costs, an all too common tendency in human behavior. Whether it's clinging to a failing project, staying in an unfulfilling job, or refusing to sell a depreciating asset, People often prioritize consistency over adaptability, fearing that changing course will signal weakness or indecision. The Monty Hall problem demonstrates that flexibility and openness to re-evaluation can yield superior results, challenging us to overcome our aversion to change. The problem also invites reflection on the broader relationship between intuition and rationality. Human beings are wired to seek patterns and make quick judgments, traits that served our ancestors well in environments where survival depended on rapid responses. However, in the modern world, where complexity and abstraction dominate, these instincts can lead us astray. The Monty Hall problem exemplifies this tension, forcing us to confront the limitations of our innate cognitive processes. It encourages us to cultivate habits of critical thinking, teaching us to question surface-level impressions and delve deeper into underlying principles. As we sit with the implications of the Monty Hall problem, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of mathematics, psychology, and philosophy. The paradox challenges us to embrace uncertainty, recognizing that appearances can be deceiving and that answers often lie beneath the surface. By contemplating the quirks of probability, we deepen our appreciation for the elegance and complexity of logical reasoning, even as we acknowledge its divergence from intuitive thought. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to abstract puzzles. Like the Monty Hall problem, some strike closer to home, resonating with the very fabric of human experience. Have you ever noticed how chasing happiness often makes it harder to find? Welcome to the paradox of hedonism, a psychological enigma that explores the elusive nature of fulfillment and the unintended consequences of desire. Let us delve into this paradox, where the pursuit of pleasure reveals the intricate dance between effort and spontaneity, longing and contentment. The paradox of hedonism, pursuing happiness, makes you unhappy. Ironically, the more you focus on seeking happiness, the less likely you are to achieve it. Why does directly pursuing joy so often backfire? This counterintuitive phenomenon lies at the heart of the paradox of hedonism, a psychological and philosophical enigma that challenges our assumptions about fulfillment and well-being. At first glance, the idea that chasing happiness could lead to unhappiness seems contradictory. After all, isn't happiness the ultimate goal of human existence? Yet, as countless individuals have discovered through experience, fixating on personal happiness often creates a self-defeating cycle of frustration and dissatisfaction. The paradox of hedonism invites us to reflect on the nature of joy, purpose, and the delicate balance between effort and spontaneity in the pursuit of a meaningful life. The explanation for this paradox lies in the complex interplay between intention and outcome. Psychologists suggest that happiness is typically a byproduct of engaging in meaningful activities, rather than a goal in itself. When we immerse ourselves in pursuits that align with our values, such as building relationships, contributing to a cause, or mastering a skill, we often experience a sense of fulfillment that transcends momentary pleasure. These activities provide structure, purpose, and a sense of connection, creating conditions conducive to happiness without requiring us to actively seek it. However, when we prioritize happiness as the primary objective, we shift our focus inward, evaluating every action and emotion against an abstract standard of feeling good. This relentless pursuit can create pressure, self-criticism, and a sense of inadequacy, undermining the very state of contentment we seek to achieve. Consider the example of someone who decides to dedicate their weekend solely to being happy. They might plan a series of activities they believe will bring joy, watching comedies, indulging in comfort food, or treating themselves to luxury experiences. Yet, if these activities feel forced or disconnected from their deeper interests, they may leave the person feeling hollow rather than fulfilled. The absence of intrinsic motivation, the drive to engage in something for its own sake, can strip even pleasurable activities of their emotional impact. Moreover, the expectation of constant happiness sets an unrealistic bar, leading to disappointment when reality inevitably falls short. In contrast, moments of genuine joy often arise unexpectedly, during times when we are fully absorbed in something larger than ourselves. A conversation with a loved one, a creative project, or an act of kindness. These experiences remind us that happiness is not something we can grasp directly, but rather a fleeting gift that emerges organically from living authentically. The implications of the paradox of hedonism extend far beyond individual psychology, offering insights into societal trends and cultural attitudes toward well-being. In modern society, where consumerism and self-help industries thrive on the promise of instant gratification, the pressure to find happiness has become pervasive. Social media platforms amplify this dynamic, presenting curated images of success, beauty, and joy that fuel comparison and discontent. The result is a collective obsession with happiness that paradoxically leaves many people feeling more anxious, isolated, and unfulfilled. By encouraging us to step back from this relentless pursuit, the paradox highlights the importance of embracing life's journey rather than obsessing over its destination. True happiness, it suggests, arises not from striving for perfection, but from accepting imperfection and finding meaning in the process of growth. This paradox also teaches us valuable lessons about the role of purpose, connection, and resilience in fostering well-being. Engaging in activities that contribute to something greater than ourselves, whether through work, volunteering, or nurturing relationships, provides a sense of belonging and significance that transcends fleeting emotions. Similarly, cultivating deep connections with others helps buffer against loneliness and despair, reminding us that happiness is rarely achieved in isolation. Finally, embracing challenges and setbacks as opportunities for growth allows us to develop resilience, transforming adversity into a source of strength and wisdom. By focusing on these foundational elements of a meaningful life, we create fertile ground for happiness to flourish naturally, without the need for deliberate effort. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of hedonism, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of human experience. The paradox challenges us to let go of rigid expectations and embrace the unpredictability of life, recognizing that joy often arrives when we least expect it. It invites us to trust in the unfolding of our journey, finding beauty in the small everyday moments that make existence worthwhile. By shifting our focus from outcomes to processes, from goals to growth, we open ourselves to the possibility of discovering happiness in ways we never anticipated. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes permeate not only the realm of human emotions, but also the domain of spirituality and metaphysics. If happiness feels elusive, consider another paradox, rooted in questions of divine power and logic. Can an omnipotent being truly be all-powerful? Let us tackle the omnipotence paradox next, delving into the philosophical tensions surrounding the concept of unlimited power and the limits of language and reason. The omnipotence paradox. Can God create a rock he can't lift? Omnipotence means having unlimited power. But what happens when you ask whether God can create a rock so heavy he can't lift it? This deceptively simple question has puzzled theologians, philosophers, and thinkers for centuries, serving as one of the most famous paradoxes in discussions of divinity and power. At its core, the omnipotence paradox challenges our understanding of absolute power by presenting a scenario that seems to defy logical consistency. If God creates such a rock, then he isn't omnipotent, because there exists something he cannot do, lift the rock. Conversely, if God cannot create the rock, then he also isn't omnipotent, because there is an action beyond his capability. This apparent contradiction forces us to grapple with the limits of human language, the nature of divine attributes, and the boundaries of logic itself. The paradox arises from the tension between the concept of omnipotence and the rules of rational thought. Omnipotence is often defined as the ability to do anything, unrestricted by limitations or constraints. Yet, the very notion of creating a rock too heavy to lift introduces a logical impossibility, a task that simultaneously requires and negates omnipotence. Philosophers have long debated whether this paradox undermines the coherence of the concept of omnipotence, or whether it merely exposes the inadequacies of human language in describing divine realities. Some argue that the paradox arises from framing omnipotence in terms of human logic, which may not apply to a being whose nature transcends finite categories. Others contend that the paradox highlights inherent contradictions within the idea of unlimited power, suggesting that omnipotence cannot logically include the ability to perform self-contradictory tasks. To explore this further, consider the implications of defining omnipotence. If we define omnipotence as the ability to do anything, including logically impossible actions, then the paradox dissolves into absurdity. For instance, could an omnipotent being create square circles, or make 2 plus 2 equal 5? These examples stretch the boundaries of coherent thought, suggesting that some tasks are inherently nonsensical, and therefore irrelevant to discussions of power. On the other hand, if we limit omnipotence to actions that are logically possible, then the paradox remains unresolved, as creating a rock too heavy to lift falls outside the realm of logical possibility. This distinction raises profound questions about the relationship between divine power and the laws of logic. Are they independent, interdependent, or perhaps even identical? Philosophers and theologians have proposed various solutions to reconcile the paradox. One approach is to redefine omnipotence as the ability to do anything that is logically possible, thereby excluding self-contradictory tasks from the scope of divine power. Under this framework, God's inability to create a rock he cannot lift does not diminish his omnipotence. Rather, it reflects the inherent constraints of logical consistency. Another perspective suggests that the paradox stems from the limitations of human language and conceptual frameworks. Words like create, lift, and omnipotence are human constructs, shaped by our finite understanding of reality. When applied to a being who exists beyond space-time and causality, these terms may lose their conventional meanings, rendering the paradox moot. From this viewpoint, the omnipotence paradox serves not as a critique of divinity, but as a reminder of the vast gulf between human cognition and divine mystery. The implications of the omnipotence paradox extend far beyond theological debates, inviting reflection on the nature of power, authority, and limitation. In human terms, power is always contextual and constrained by external factors, whether physical, social, or ethical. Even the most powerful individuals or entities operate within systems of rules and relationships that shape their actions. The paradox challenges us to consider whether true omnipotence is even conceivable within a universe governed by cause and effect, order, and chaos. It also prompts us to reflect on the ways we conceptualize and attribute power, both to divine beings and to human leaders. Does the pursuit of absolute power inevitably lead to contradictions and paradoxes, or is there a form of strength that lies in acknowledging limits and embracing humility? Moreover, the paradox underscores the importance of language and definition in shaping philosophical inquiry. The way we frame questions about divinity, power, and existence directly influences the answers we derive or fail to derive. By questioning the adequacy of human language to describe divine concepts, the omnipotence paradox invites us to embrace ambiguity and uncertainty. Recognizing that some truths may transcend verbal expression, it encourages us to approach theological and metaphysical questions with humility, acknowledging the provisional nature of our conclusions and the infinite complexity of the divine. As we sit with the implications of the omnipotence paradox, we are reminded of the profound beauty and mystery inherent in exploring the nature of power and divinity. The paradox challenges us to expand our intellectual and spiritual horizons, pushing us to confront the limits of logic and language while remaining open to the ineffable. By contemplating the tensions between omnipotence and paradox, we deepen our appreciation for the interplay between reason and faith, certainty and wonder. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to theological quandaries. They also manifest in the realm of language itself, where words and meanings can twist and turn in ways that confound expectation. Enter the liar paradox, a linguistic riddle that plays tricks on truth and falsehood, exposing the quirks and contradictions embedded in the fabric of communication. Let us delve into this enigma, where language becomes both the tool and the trap of understanding. The liar paradox. This statement is false. Consider the sentence, this statement is false. If it's true, then it must be false. But if it's false, then it must be true. Your brain might already feel tangled. This deceptively simple, yet profoundly unsettling paradox lies at the intersection of language, logic, and philosophy, challenging our understanding of truth and consistency. Known as the liar paradox, this self-referential riddle has fascinated thinkers for centuries, exposing flaws in classical logic and raising questions about the very nature of truth itself. At its core, the paradox reveals the limitations of binary frameworks, systems that rely on rigid distinctions between true and false, and invites us to grapple with the complexities of meaning and reasoning. The liar paradox arises from the peculiar properties of self-reference, where a statement refers back to itself in a way that creates an irresolvable contradiction. To unpack this, let us revisit the example. This statement is false. If we assume the statement is true, then what it asserts must hold, that it is false. But if it is false, then it cannot be true, which means it must indeed be false. Yet, if it is false, the assertion that this statement is false becomes true, looping endlessly between the two states. This oscillation defies resolution, creating a logical impasse that undermines the principles of classical logic, which demand that every proposition be either true or false, but not both simultaneously. The implications of the liar paradox extend far beyond its surface-level absurdity, touching on foundational issues in philosophy, mathematics, and computer science. In philosophy, the paradox challenges traditional notions of truth and language, forcing us to reconsider how we define and evaluate statements. For centuries, philosophers have relied on binary systems of logic to analyze arguments and resolve disputes. The liar paradox disrupts this framework, demonstrating that some statements resist classification within these rigid categories. It raises profound questions about the nature of truth. Is truth absolute, or is it context-dependent? Can a statement be neither true nor false, occupying instead a gray area of ambiguity? These uncertainties invite us to explore alternative logical systems, such as paraconsistent logic, which allows for contradictions without collapsing into incoherence. In mathematics, the liar paradox has deep connections to foundational crises, particularly those surrounding set theory and formal systems. For instance, Bertrand Russell's famous paradox about sets that do not contain themselves echoes the structure of the liar paradox, revealing similar contradictions within mathematical frameworks. These discoveries prompted mathematicians to refine their axiomatic systems, leading to innovations like Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which demonstrate the inherent limitations of formal systems. The liar paradox thus serves as a reminder that even the most rigorous disciplines are not immune to the quirks of self-reference and paradox. In computer science, the paradox highlights the challenges of designing systems that process information based on binary logic. Computers operate by assigning values of true or false to data, executing algorithms that rely on clear distinctions between these states. However, self-referential statements like the liar paradox expose vulnerabilities in such systems, illustrating how circular reasoning can lead to infinite loops or system failures. Programmers and engineers must account for these possibilities, developing safeguards to prevent logical inconsistencies from undermining computational processes. The paradox also resonates with debates about artificial intelligence, particularly in the realm of natural language processing. How can machines interpret ambiguous or contradictory statements without falling into the same traps that befuddle human reasoning? These questions underscore the complexity of replicating human cognition in digital systems. Beyond its technical applications, the liar paradox carries profound philosophical and existential implications. It reminds us that language and logic, while powerful tools for understanding the world, are not infallible. Words are inherently malleable, shaped by context, culture, and individual interpretation. When pushed to their limits, they reveal cracks in the structures we use to make sense of reality. The paradox encourages us to embrace ambiguity, recognizing that some truths may elude definitive categorization. It also invites humility, urging us to acknowledge the provisional nature of knowledge and the boundaries of human comprehension. As we sit with the implications of the liar paradox, we are reminded of the intricate dance between clarity and confusion, certainty and doubt. The paradox challenges us to question our assumptions, to peer beyond the veil of apparent simplicity, and to find beauty in the mysteries that defy easy resolution. By contemplating the tensions between truth and falsehood, we deepen our appreciation for the richness and complexity of thought itself. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that self-reference, the engine of the liar paradox, can lead to other mind-bending scenarios. Consider a situation where predicting the unpredictable becomes the central conundrum. Enter the unexpected hanging paradox, a thought experiment that twists expectations and challenges our understanding of anticipation and surprise. Let us unravel this enigma, where logic collides with intuition, and the future proves as elusive as the present. The unexpected hanging paradox. Predicting the unpredictable. A judge tells a prisoner, "You will be hanged next week," but the day will come as a complete surprise. The prisoner reasons that if they haven't been hanged by Friday, then Saturday must be the execution day. But since it wouldn't be a surprise, the judge's statement seems impossible. This deceptively simple scenario forms the foundation of one of philosophy's most intriguing paradoxes, the unexpected hanging paradox. At its core, this thought experiment explores the tension between prediction and unpredictability, challenging our assumptions about logic, certainty, and the nature of knowledge. It invites us to grapple with the paradoxical interplay between anticipation and inevitability, revealing how self-referential reasoning can unravel even the most seemingly straightforward statements. The paradox unfolds as the prisoner engages in a process of logical deduction. If the hanging is to occur next week and must come as a complete surprise, the prisoner concludes that it cannot happen on Saturday, the final day of the week. Why? Because if no hanging has occurred by Friday, the prisoner would know with certainty that Saturday is the only remaining option, thus negating the element of surprise. With Saturday ruled out, the prisoner applies the same reasoning to Friday, arguing that if no hanging occurs by Thursday, Friday would similarly fail to be surprising. This chain of reasoning extends backward through the week, eliminating each day as a possible candidate for the execution. By the end of this deductive process, the prisoner concludes that the hanging cannot occur at all, as no day would satisfy the condition of being both scheduled and unpredictable. Yet, when the hanging does occur, say on Wednesday, it catches the prisoner completely off guard, fulfilling the judge's promise of unpredictability. The contradiction arises from the interplay between the prisoner's reasoning and the actual outcome. The paradox exposes the limitations of deductive logic when applied to self-referential scenarios, where predictions about an event can influence the conditions under which it occurs. In attempting to anticipate the hanging, the prisoner inadvertently undermines their own ability to predict it accurately. The act of reasoning itself becomes entangled in the paradox, creating a feedback loop that defies resolution. This tension highlights the inherent complexity of situations where knowledge and uncertainty collide, forcing us to confront the fragility of certainty in the face of unpredictability. The implications of the unexpected hanging paradox extend far beyond the confines of a hypothetical courtroom, resonating deeply with broader philosophical questions about free will, determinism, and the nature of knowledge. At its heart, the paradox challenges the assumption that logical deduction can always lead to accurate predictions. If we can logically deduce an outcome, does it negate its unpredictability, or does the act of predicting alter the very reality we seek to understand? These questions echo debates in quantum mechanics, where the observer effect suggests that the act of measurement influences the system being observed. Similarly, the unexpected hanging paradox hints at the possibility that our attempts to impose order and predictability on the world may inadvertently disrupt the phenomena we aim to comprehend. Moreover, the paradox raises profound questions about the relationship between free will and determinism. If the prisoner's fate is predetermined by the judge's decree, does their attempt to reason through the situation represent an exercise of free will, or merely an illusion of control? The paradox blurs the boundaries between agency and inevitability, suggesting that our perceptions of choice and constraint are deeply intertwined. It also invites reflection on the nature of surprise itself. Is unpredictability an intrinsic quality of events, or is it shaped by our expectations and interpretations? The unexpected hanging paradox challenges us to reconsider the role of perspective in shaping reality, reminding us that what we perceive as inevitable or surprising often depends on the lens through which we view it. In everyday life, the paradox serves as a metaphor for the unpredictability of human experience. We often strive to anticipate outcomes, whether in personal relationships, professional endeavors, or global events, believing that careful analysis will yield clarity. Yet, the unexpected hanging paradox reminds us that life is inherently uncertain, resistant to reduction into neat categories or predictable patterns. It encourages us to embrace ambiguity, recognizing that some aspects of existence defy logical explanation. By relinquishing the need for absolute certainty, we open ourselves to the richness of the unknown, finding beauty in the unexpected twists and turns of life. As we sit with the implications of the unexpected hanging paradox, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of thought, language, and reality. The paradox challenges us to remain humble in the face of mystery, acknowledging that some questions may never yield definitive answers. It invites us to cultivate a mindset of curiosity and openness, embracing uncertainty as an essential part of the human experience. By contemplating the delicate balance between prediction and unpredictability, we deepen our appreciation for the complexities of existence and the infinite possibilities that lie beyond the horizon of understanding. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that uncertainty is not confined to abstract puzzles like the unexpected hanging paradox. It also manifests in everyday scenarios, where rules and logic create their own peculiar contradictions. Consider a town where everyone must follow strict grooming guidelines, and the barber is tasked with shaving those who do not shave themselves. Who then shave the barber? Enter the Barber paradox, a classic conundrum that exposes the quirks of self-reference and the limits of formal systems. Let us delve into this paradox, where simplicity gives way to complexity, and clarity dissolves into contradiction. The Barber paradox. Who shaves the barber? In a small village, there's a barber who shaves all and only those who do not shave themselves. But here's the twist. Who shaves the barber? This seemingly simple scenario quickly spirals into a logical conundrum, exposing the fragility of formal systems and the complexities of self-reference. At first glance, the paradox appears to be a playful riddle, but upon closer inspection, it reveals profound insights into the limitations of logic, language, and rule-based frameworks. Like many paradoxes, its simplicity belies its depth, challenging us to confront contradictions that arise when clear rules are applied to themselves. The paradox unfolds as follows. Imagine a village with a single barber, whose role is defined by a strict rule. He shaves all and only those who do not shave themselves. The rule seems straightforward enough, but complications arise when we consider the barber himself. If the barber shaves himself, he violates his own criterion, because he is supposed to shave only those who do not shave themselves. On the other hand, if someone else shaves him, then he does not fit the rule either, since the barber is responsible for shaving everyone in the village who does not shave themselves. This creates an irresolvable contradiction, leaving us with no coherent answer to the question of who shaves the barber. The Barber paradox serves as a vivid illustration of how self-referential statements can unravel even the most carefully constructed systems. It highlights the tension between completeness and consistency, two qualities that are often desirable in formal frameworks, but cannot always coexist. In this case, the barber's rule is internally inconsistent, creating a logical loop that defies resolution. The paradox forces us to recognize that some rules, while appearing sound on the surface, may collapse under scrutiny when they are applied reflexively. This paradox is closely related to Russell's paradox in set theory, which questions whether a set can contain itself. Imagine a set of all sets that do not contain themselves. If this set contains itself, it violates its own definition. If it does not contain itself, it must belong to the set, again violating its definition. Both the Barber paradox and Russell's paradox expose flaws in systems that rely on binary distinctions and self-contained rules. They reveal the inherent limitations of formal logic, demonstrating that even the most rigorous frameworks can produce contradictions when pushed to their limits. The implications of the Barber paradox extend far beyond the hypothetical village and its barber. It invites us to reflect on the broader challenges of creating consistent systems, whether in philosophy, mathematics, or everyday life. For instance, in computer science, the paradox mirrors issues that arise in programming languages and algorithms. Recursive functions, which call themselves during execution, must be carefully designed to avoid infinite loops or logical inconsistencies. Similarly, in law and governance, the paradox underscores the importance of crafting rules that account for edge cases and self-referential scenarios. A legal system that fails to anticipate such complexities risks creating contradictions that undermine its authority and effectiveness. Moreover, the Barber paradox challenges us to think critically about the nature of definitions and boundaries. Many systems rely on clear distinctions to function effectively, but these distinctions often break down when subjected to extreme or unusual conditions. For example, consider the concept of identity in social and political contexts. Categories like citizen, employee, or family member are typically defined by specific criteria, but what happens when individuals fall into gray areas that defy classification? The Barber paradox reminds us that definitions are not infallible, and that rigid adherence to rules can sometimes lead to absurd or contradictory outcomes. At a deeper level, the paradox also invites reflection on the human tendency to seek order and structure in a chaotic world. We create rules, systems, and frameworks to impose meaning and predictability on our experiences, believing that clarity will bring control. Yet, the Barber paradox demonstrates that even the most well-intentioned efforts to organize reality can backfire, producing paradoxes that defy resolution. It encourages us to embrace ambiguity, recognizing that some aspects of existence resist categorization, and that uncertainty is an intrinsic part of life. By acknowledging the limits of formal systems, we cultivate a mindset of humility and adaptability, better equipped to navigate the complexities of the world. As we sit with the implications of the Barber paradox, we are reminded of the interconnectedness of logic, language, and reality. The paradox challenges us to remain curious and open-minded, questioning assumptions and exploring the boundaries of what we think we know. By contemplating the contradictions embedded in seemingly simple systems, we deepen our appreciation for the beauty and complexity of thought itself. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to abstract puzzles or theoretical constructs. They also manifest in practical, real-world scenarios, where individual actions can have unintended consequences on larger systems. Consider the paradoxical effects of saving money in an economy. While thriftiness is often praised as a virtue, excessive saving can actually harm economic growth. Welcome to the paradox of thrift, a counterintuitive phenomenon that highlights the delicate balance between personal responsibility and collective well-being. Let us delve into this paradox, where the pursuit of financial security reveals the intricate interplay between individual behavior and systemic outcomes. The paradox of thrift. Saving too much hurts the economy. Saving money is generally seen as a virtue, a prudent habit that ensures financial security and stability. Yet, what happens when everyone saves at the same time? This question lies at the heart of one of economics' most intriguing paradoxes, the paradox of thrift. While saving is undoubtedly beneficial on an individual level, its collective impact can be counterproductive, particularly during economic downturns. When large numbers of people prioritize saving over spending, the result is often reduced demand, fewer jobs, and slower economic growth, a cycle that ultimately harms everyone, including those who saved. This paradox highlights the interconnectedness of individual actions and collective outcomes, challenging the assumption that personal financial prudence always benefits society. It underscores the delicate balance between saving and spending, revealing how seemingly rational behavior can lead to unintended consequences. The paradox of thrift unfolds in scenarios where economic uncertainty prompts individuals to tighten their belts. During recessions or periods of financial instability, people naturally become more cautious, cutting back on discretionary spending and increasing their savings to protect themselves from potential hardships. On the surface, this behavior appears logical and responsible. After all, saving provides a safety net for individuals and families, enabling them to weather unforeseen challenges such as job loss or medical emergencies. However, when this mindset spreads across an entire economy, it creates a ripple effect with far-reaching implications. Reduced consumer spending leads to lower demand for goods and services, which in turn forces businesses to cut costs by laying off workers or reducing production. As unemployment rises and incomes decline, even more people are compelled to save rather than spend, perpetuating a vicious cycle that stifles economic recovery. This paradox illustrates the tension between microeconomic and macroeconomic perspectives. From an individual standpoint, saving is a rational response to economic uncertainty, offering a sense of control and preparedness. However, from a macroeconomic perspective, excessive saving undermines the very system that sustains prosperity. Modern economies rely on a steady flow of money, through consumption and investment, to generate growth. When this flow slows due to widespread saving, the entire system suffers. For instance, businesses that experience declining sales may struggle to stay afloat, leading to closures and further job losses. Governments may also face reduced tax revenues, limiting their ability to fund public services or stimulate the economy. In this way, the paradox of thrift reveals how individual actions, though well-intentioned, can inadvertently contribute to broader economic challenges. The implications of the paradox of thrift extend beyond theoretical discussions, offering valuable insights into real-world economic policy and decision-making. During times of crisis, governments and central banks often implement measures to encourage spending and investment, such as lowering interest rates, providing stimulus checks, or funding infrastructure projects. These interventions aim to counteract the negative effects of reduced consumer spending by injecting money back into the economy. Similarly, businesses may offer discounts or promotions to incentivize purchases, hoping to boost demand and stabilize their operations. While these strategies are not without risks or limitations, they reflect an understanding of the paradox of thrift and the need to strike a balance between saving and spending. Moreover, the paradox challenges conventional notions of financial responsibility, highlighting the importance of context in evaluating individual behavior. In stable economic conditions, saving can indeed promote long-term prosperity by fostering investment, innovation, and resilience. However, during downturns, excessive saving can exacerbate existing problems, creating a feedback loop that deepens the crisis. This duality underscores the complexity of economic systems, where actions that seem virtuous in isolation may have adverse effects when scaled up to the societal level. It also invites reflection on the role of institutions in guiding behavior, emphasizing the need for policies that align individual incentives with collective well-being. At a deeper level, the paradox of thrift serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of human society. Economic systems are not merely abstract constructs, but living networks shaped by the choices and actions of individuals. Every decision to save or spend has ripple effects that extend far beyond the person making it, influencing businesses, communities, and entire nations. This interconnectedness calls for a shift in perspective, encouraging us to consider not only our own interests but also the broader impact of our actions. By recognizing the delicate balance between saving and spending, we can make more informed decisions that contribute to both personal and collective prosperity. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of thrift, we are reminded of the profound complexity of economic systems and the challenges of navigating them. The paradox challenges us to embrace nuance, acknowledging that there are no one-size-fits-all solutions to financial dilemmas. It invites us to cultivate a mindset of adaptability, balancing prudence with participation in the economy. By contemplating the interplay between individual behavior and systemic outcomes, we deepen our appreciation for the intricate web of relationships that underpins modern life. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to economic choices. They also manifest in everyday decisions, where too much of a good thing can sometimes lead to frustration or dissatisfaction. Consider the overwhelming sensation of facing too many options, whether in shopping, dining, or planning your future. This phenomenon, known as the paradox of choice, reveals how abundance can sometimes feel like a burden rather than a blessing. Let us delve into this paradox, where the pursuit of freedom and variety exposes the limits of human decision-making and the hidden costs of endless possibilities. The paradox of choice. More options lead to less satisfaction. Imagine standing in front of a wall of 50 types of jam at the grocery store. Sounds great, right? After all, variety is often associated with freedom and abundance, qualities that modern society celebrates as hallmarks of progress. Yet studies show that having too many choices often leaves people feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and dissatisfied. This counterintuitive phenomenon, known as the paradox of choice, challenges our assumptions about the relationship between options and happiness. Far from enhancing well-being, excessive choice can lead to decision fatigue, regret, and even paralysis, undermining the very sense of freedom it promises to deliver. By exploring this paradox, we gain valuable insights into human psychology, decision-making, and the hidden costs of abundance. The concept was popularized by psychologist Barry Schwartz in his book, The Paradox of Choice: Why More is Less. Schwartz argues that while some degree of choice is essential for autonomy and satisfaction, an overwhelming array of options creates cognitive strain and emotional distress. When faced with countless alternatives, from brands of cereal to career paths, we invest significant mental energy in evaluating each one, fearing that we might make the wrong decision or miss out on a better option. This process, known as decision fatigue, depletes our cognitive resources, leaving us less capable of making thoughtful choices. Moreover, once a decision is made, the presence of unchosen alternatives often triggers regret, as we ruminate on what might have been. For instance, after purchasing a particular brand of jam, you might second-guess your choice, wondering if another option would have tasted better or been more cost-effective. This cycle of doubt erodes satisfaction, transforming what should be a simple act of consumption into a source of stress. Schwartz identifies two types of decision makers: maximizers and satisficers. Maximizers are individuals who strive to make the best possible choice, meticulously comparing every available option to ensure they don't settle for anything less than perfection. While this approach may seem admirable, it often leads to dissatisfaction, as maximizers are prone to overthinking and regret. Satisficers, on the other hand, aim for good enough rather than optimal outcomes, setting modest criteria for success and stopping their search once those criteria are met. Research suggests that satisficers tend to experience greater contentment with their decisions, as they avoid the pitfalls of endless comparison and self-doubt. The paradox of choice highlights the advantages of adopting a satisficing mindset, encouraging us to prioritize simplicity and clarity over exhaustive analysis. The implications of the paradox of choice extend far beyond consumer behavior, influencing areas such as education, healthcare, and personal development. In education, for example, students navigating an ever-expanding array of majors, extracurriculars, and career paths may feel paralyzed by the pressure to choose wisely. Similarly, patients confronted with myriad treatment options may struggle to make informed decisions, particularly when faced with complex medical jargon and conflicting advice. Even in everyday life, the proliferation of choices, from dating apps to streaming services, can create a sense of overwhelm, leading individuals to question whether they are truly maximizing their opportunities. The paradox reminds us that while choice is empowering, it is not without its drawbacks, and excessive options can diminish rather than enhance our quality of life. This paradox also invites reflection on the role of constraints in fostering creativity and satisfaction. Constraints, often viewed as limitations, can actually serve as catalysts for innovation and focus. For instance, artists working within strict parameters, such as writing a sonnet or composing within a specific musical key, are often able to produce more compelling and cohesive works than those given unlimited freedom. Similarly, in decision-making, narrowing down options can reduce stress and increase confidence in the choices we make. By embracing simplicity and prioritizing meaningful criteria, we can reclaim a sense of agency and joy in navigating life's complexities. At a deeper level, the paradox of choice challenges societal narratives about freedom and abundance. Modern culture often equates choice with empowerment, suggesting that more options inherently lead to greater happiness. However, the paradox reveals that true freedom lies not in the quantity of choices, but in the quality of our experiences. It encourages us to reevaluate our priorities, focusing on what truly matters, rather than succumbing to the allure of endless possibilities. By cultivating gratitude for what we have, and resisting the temptation to constantly seek more, we can find greater fulfillment in the present moment. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of choice, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of psychology, culture, and well-being. The paradox challenges us to embrace simplicity, recognizing that constraints can be liberating rather than restrictive. It invites us to reflect on the stories we tell ourselves about happiness and success, questioning whether the pursuit of infinite options aligns with our deepest values. By contemplating the delicate balance between freedom and fulfillment, we deepen our appreciation for the art of living intentionally. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that choices shape not only our external lives, but also our internal worlds, the stories we tell ourselves about reality, identity, and meaning. Consider the emotions we feel toward fictional characters, people who exist only in books, films, or games. Why do we cry for characters who never lived or cheer for heroes who are mere figments of imagination? This phenomenon, known as the paradox of fiction, explores the curious interplay between reason and emotion, inviting us to reflect on the power of storytelling, to transcend the boundaries of truth and illusion. Let us delve into this paradox, where fiction becomes a mirror to the soul and a testament to the boundless depths of human empathy. The paradox of fiction. Why do we feel emotions toward things that aren't real? Have you ever cried over a character in a book or movie, knowing full well they don't exist? How can we experience genuine emotions for something we know isn't real? This intriguing contradiction lies at the heart of the paradox of fiction, a philosophical puzzle that explores the curious interplay between reason and emotion. On one hand, logic dictates that we should not care about events or characters we recognize as fictional. They are, after all, mere products of imagination, devoid of tangible existence. Yet, on the other hand, our emotional responses to these creations feel undeniably authentic. We laugh at humorous scenes, shed tears during tragic moments, and even develop deep attachments to characters who never lived. The paradox of fiction challenges us to reconcile this apparent inconsistency, shedding light on the profound power of storytelling and the human capacity for empathy. The paradox arises from the tension between two seemingly incompatible facts. First, we know that fictional characters and scenarios are not real. They do not occupy physical space, nor do they have any direct impact on our lives. Second, despite this knowledge, we often respond to them with intense emotional reactions, as if they were real. For instance, consider the grief many readers felt upon the death of a beloved character like Sirius Black in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, or the collective outrage sparked by the fate of Ned Stark in George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire. These emotional responses defy rational explanation, as they persist even when we are fully aware of the fictional nature of the narratives. The question then becomes, how can we simultaneously hold contradictory beliefs, one affirming the unreality of the story, and another engaging with it emotionally, as though it were true? Philosophers have proposed various explanations to resolve this paradox, each offering a different perspective on the relationship between cognition and emotion. One prominent theory suggests that our emotional engagement with fiction stems from a form of suspension of disbelief. When we immerse ourselves in a story, we temporarily set aside our awareness of its unreality, allowing ourselves to experience it as though it were happening in real time. This process enables us to connect with characters and events on an emotional level, even as our rational minds remain conscious of their fictional status. Another explanation posits that our emotions toward fiction are not directed at the characters themselves, but rather at the situations they represent. For example, when we cry over a character's loss, we may actually be responding to the universal themes of love, grief, or injustice that the story evokes. Themes that resonate deeply with our own experiences and values. The implications of the paradox of fiction extend far beyond the realm of literature and entertainment, offering insights into the fundamental nature of human empathy and imagination. Stories serve as powerful tools for fostering connection and understanding, bridging cultural, temporal, and individual divides. Through fiction, we gain access to perspectives and experiences vastly different from our own, expanding our capacity for compassion and broadening our worldview. The paradox highlights the unique ability of storytelling to transcend the boundaries of reality, creating shared narratives that unite us in our common humanity. It also underscores the adaptive role of imagination in shaping human experience, enabling us to explore complex emotions and moral dilemmas in a safe, controlled environment. Moreover, the paradox of fiction invites reflection on the transformative power of art and creativity. Whether through novels, films, paintings, or music, artists tap into the depths of human emotion, crafting works that resonate across generations. These creations remind us that truth and meaning are not confined to literal realities. They can emerge just as powerfully, if not more so, from the realm of imagination. By engaging with fiction, we participate in a collective act of creation, weaving together threads of memory, desire, and aspiration into a tapestry of shared significance. In doing so, we affirm the enduring value of storytelling as a cornerstone of human culture, one that enriches our lives in ways both subtle and profound. At a deeper level, the paradox challenges us to reconsider the distinction between real and imaginary emotions. While we tend to associate authenticity with tangible physical experiences, the paradox of fiction demonstrates that our emotional lives are far more nuanced. The tears we shed for fictional characters are no less genuine than those we shed for real people. They simply arise from different sources. By embracing this complexity, we cultivate a richer, more inclusive understanding of what it means to feel, to be moved by the beauty of a sunset, the tragedy of a news headline, or the poignancy of a well-told story. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of fiction, we are reminded of the boundless depths of human imagination and the extraordinary ways in which it shapes our perception of the world. The paradox challenges us to embrace the dualities of reason and emotion, reality and illusion, recognizing that truth is not always confined to the visible or the concrete. By contemplating the power of storytelling to evoke empathy and forge connections, we deepen our appreciation for the intricate dance between mind and heart. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that imagination not only shapes our emotional landscapes, but also influences our values and priorities in surprising ways. Consider the stark contrast between water, essential for life, and diamonds, which are far more valuable despite being non-essential. This phenomenon, known as the paradox of value, examines the peculiar logic underlying human perceptions of worth. Let us delve into this paradox, where necessity and scarcity collide, revealing the quirks and contradictions embedded in the way we assign value to the world around us. The paradox of value. Why is water cheap, while diamonds are expensive? Water is essential for life. Without it, we wouldn't survive more than a few days. Diamonds, on the other hand, are luxuries with no practical necessity. So why does society place so much higher value on diamonds than water? This counterintuitive disparity lies at the heart of one of economics' most enduring puzzles, the paradox of value, also known as the diamond-water paradox. First articulated by economist Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations, this paradox challenges our intuitive understanding of worth and exposes the complex interplay between scarcity, utility, and human perception. It forces us to confront the dissonance between what is essential for survival and what commands high prices in the marketplace, inviting reflection on how societies assign value and whether those valuations align with deeper truths about human needs and priorities. At its core, the diamond-water paradox arises from the distinction between intrinsic value and market value. Intrinsic value refers to the inherent usefulness or importance of something, qualities like water's life-sustaining properties or food's nourishment. Market value, however, reflects the price people are willing to pay for a good or service, which is influenced by factors such as scarcity, desirability, and marginal utility. Water, though indispensable, is abundant in many parts of the world, meaning that each additional unit of water has relatively low marginal value. For instance, once basic hydration needs are met, the next glass of water provides diminishing returns in terms of satisfaction or utility. Diamonds, by contrast, are rare and difficult to obtain, making them scarce and highly sought after. Their glittering allure, combined with their limited supply, drives up their market value, despite their lack of practical necessity. Adam Smith's exploration of this paradox revealed a fundamental insight into economic theory. The price of something is not determined solely by its overall utility, but by its marginal utility, the additional satisfaction gained from consuming one more unit of it. Water's abundance ensures that its marginal utility remains low, even though its total utility is immense. Conversely, diamonds' rarity keeps their marginal utility high, as acquiring one represents a significant and exclusive achievement. This principle helps explain why goods with little intrinsic value can command astronomical prices, while necessities like water remain relatively inexpensive. The implications of the paradox of value extend far beyond the realm of economics, offering profound insights into human behavior and societal values. It highlights the tension between what is objectively important and what is subjectively prized, challenging us to reflect on the ways in which cultural, social, and psychological factors shape our perceptions of worth. For example, Consider how advertising and branding amplify the desirability of luxury items like diamonds, associating them with status, romance, and exclusivity. These constructed narratives elevate their perceived value, often overshadowing the intrinsic importance of more fundamental resources like water. Similarly, the paradox invites us to examine broader patterns of consumption and resource allocation, questioning whether modern societies prioritize the right things, or if they are caught up in superficial constructs of wealth and prestige. Moreover, the paradox of value underscores the ethical dimensions of valuation, particularly in contexts of inequality and resource distribution. While water may be cheap in regions where it is abundant, its scarcity in drought-prone areas can lead to skyrocketing prices, exacerbating poverty and health crises. In such cases, the paradox reveals the moral complexities of assigning value to resources based on market dynamics, rather than human need. It calls attention to the urgent need for policies that ensure equitable access to essentials like clean water, healthcare, and education, regardless of their market-driven costs. By juxtaposing the affordability of life-sustaining resources against the exorbitant prices of non-essential luxuries, the paradox invites us to reimagine systems of value that prioritize sustainability, equity, and well-being over profit and scarcity. At a deeper level, the paradox of value challenges us to reflect on personal and collective priorities. Are we valuing the right things in life, or are we swayed by societal constructs that glorify material wealth and external markers of success? It prompts us to consider whether our pursuit of diamonds, metaphorically speaking, comes at the expense of neglecting the waters that sustain us emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. By contemplating the difference between intrinsic and market value, we cultivate a more mindful approach to decision-making, one that balances immediate desires with long-term fulfillment. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of value, we are reminded of the intricate web of factors that shape our understanding of worth. The paradox challenges us to embrace nuance, recognizing that value is not an absolute concept, but a dynamic interplay of utility, scarcity, and perception. It invites us to question inherited norms and assumptions, encouraging us to align our values with deeper truths about what truly sustains and enriches human life. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that value is not confined to economics. It permeates every aspect of human interaction, including the principles that govern coexistence and tolerance. Consider the delicate balance required to uphold tolerance in diverse societies. What happens when tolerating intolerance threatens the very fabric of tolerance itself? This paradox, known as the paradox of toleration, explores the boundaries of acceptance and the limits of inclusivity, challenging us to navigate the complexities of coexistence in a pluralistic world. Let us delve into this paradox, where ideals of openness and restraint collide, revealing the fragile yet vital foundations of harmony in human communities. The paradox of toleration. Should we tolerate intolerance? Tolerance is often celebrated as a cornerstone of modern societies, a principle that fosters diversity, coexistence, and mutual respect. But what happens when tolerating someone's beliefs or actions leads to the erosion of tolerance itself? This question lies at the heart of one of philosophy's most challenging conundrums, the paradox of toleration. At its core, this paradox forces us to confront a profound dilemma. Can a society committed to openness and inclusivity survive if it extends tolerance to those who seek to dismantle these very principles? To preserve tolerance, must we sometimes be intolerant of intolerance? This tension underscores the delicate balance between individual freedoms and collective values, inviting us to reflect on the boundaries of acceptance in an increasingly complex and polarized world. The paradox of toleration arises from the inherent contradictions embedded in the concept of tolerance itself. On one hand, tolerance is predicated on the idea of respecting differences, even when we disagree with them. It champions pluralism, encouraging individuals and communities to coexist despite divergent beliefs, practices, and ideologies. On the other hand, unchecked tolerance can create conditions where intolerant ideologies, such as hate speech, discrimination, or authoritarianism, flourish, threatening the very fabric of a tolerant society. For example, allowing hate speech to go unchallenged may embolden extremist groups, fostering environments of fear and exclusion that undermine the principles of openness and equality. Similarly, tolerating authoritarian tendencies within a democratic framework risks eroding the freedoms and rights that sustain democracy itself. In such cases, the paradox emerges by tolerating intolerance. We risk destroying the foundation upon which tolerance rests. Philosophers have long grappled with this conundrum, offering diverse perspectives on how to navigate the tension between tolerance and its limits. One approach, often associated with philosopher Karl Popper, is known as the paradox of tolerance. Popper argued that unlimited tolerance inevitably leads to the disappearance of tolerance itself, as intolerant groups exploit open systems to suppress dissent and impose their will. To prevent this outcome, he suggested that societies must adopt a stance of intolerance toward intolerance, actively resisting ideologies and actions that threaten the survival of tolerance. While this solution may seem contradictory, it reflects a pragmatic recognition of the need to protect foundational values from internal threats. Other thinkers emphasize the importance of context and proportionality, advocating for nuanced responses that distinguish between harmful ideologies and mere differences of opinion. The implications of the paradox of toleration extend far beyond theoretical debates, influencing real-world decisions about freedom, justice, and governance. Consider the challenges faced by liberal democracies in balancing free speech with the need to combat hate speech and misinformation. On one hand, restricting speech risks infringing on individual liberties and setting dangerous precedents for censorship. On the other hand, failing to address harmful rhetoric can exacerbate social divisions, perpetuate inequality, and endanger vulnerable populations. Striking the right balance requires careful deliberation, weighing the potential harms of intolerance against the risks of overreach. Similarly, in multicultural societies, the paradox highlights the complexities of fostering inclusivity, while addressing practices or beliefs that conflict with shared norms of equality and human rights. These dilemmas underscore the fragility of tolerance, reminding us that it is not a passive state, but an ongoing process of negotiation and adaptation. Moreover, the paradox of toleration invites reflection on the ethical dimensions of coexistence. It challenges us to consider where we draw the line between respecting individual rights and protecting collective values. For instance, should a society tolerate cultural practices that violate universal human rights, such as child marriage or gender-based violence, in the name of cultural relativism? Or does the commitment to human dignity necessitate intervention, even at the cost of appearing intolerant? These questions reveal the moral ambiguities inherent in navigating diversity, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about power, privilege, and responsibility. By grappling with these tensions, we deepen our understanding of what it means to live together in a world shaped by difference and disagreement. At a deeper level, the paradox highlights the importance of vigilance in safeguarding the principles of tolerance. It reminds us that tolerance is not a static achievement, but a dynamic ideal that requires constant effort and self-reflection. By engaging in open dialogue, fostering empathy, and promoting education, we can build societies that are resilient enough to withstand the pressures of intolerance without sacrificing their core values. The paradox also encourages humility, urging us to recognize the limits of our own perspectives and the fallibility of our judgments. In doing so, we cultivate a culture of critical thinking and compassion, essential ingredients for navigating the complexities of modern life. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of toleration, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of freedom, morality, and community. The paradox challenges us to embrace complexity, recognizing that tolerance is not a simple matter of acceptance but a nuanced balancing act that demands wisdom, courage, and integrity. By contemplating the boundaries of tolerance, we deepen our appreciation for the delicate yet vital foundations of coexistence in a pluralistic world. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that balancing competing interests is not confined to questions of tolerance. It also permeates the very structure of democratic governance. Democracies pride themselves on upholding majority rule, while safeguarding minority rights, yet reconciling these principles often gives rise to paradoxical tensions. How do we ensure that the voice of the majority does not silence the voices of the marginalized? This challenge, known as the paradox of democracy, explores the intricate interplay between representation, fairness and justice. Let us delve into this paradox, where the ideals of equality and freedom collide, revealing the enduring struggles of self-governance in an imperfect world. The paradox of democracy, majority rule versus minority rights. Democracy thrives on the principle of majority rule. But what happens when the majority oppresses minorities? Can democracy function without safeguarding the rights of all individuals? This enduring question lies at the heart of one of political philosophy's most profound dilemmas, the paradox of democracy. At its core, this paradox highlights the tension between two foundational ideals of democratic governance, the will of the majority and the protection of minority rights. While majority rule ensures that decisions reflect the collective preferences of the people, it also carries the risk of marginalizing smaller groups, whose voices may be drowned out by the weight of numbers. Without mechanisms to safeguard individual freedoms and minority interests, democracy risks devolving into what Alexis de Tocqueville famously termed the tyranny of the majority, where the majority imposes its will at the expense of fairness, justice, and inclusivity. The paradox of democracy arises from the inherent contradiction between these competing principles. On one hand, majority rule is a cornerstone of democratic legitimacy, rooted in the belief that decisions should reflect the preferences of the greatest number of people. It embodies the spirit of self-governance, empowering citizens to shape their societies through free and fair elections. On the other hand, democracy also rests on the premise of equality, ensuring that every individual, regardless of their status or affiliation, enjoys fundamental rights and protections. These rights include freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and equal treatment under the law, which are essential for preserving human dignity and fostering social cohesion. The challenge lies in reconciling these ideals. How can a system designed to prioritize the majority also protect those who find themselves in the minority? Historically, democracies have grappled with this paradox in myriad ways, often revealing both the fragility and resilience of democratic institutions. For instance, consider the United States during its early years as a fledgling democracy. While the Constitution enshrined the principle of majority rule, it also embedded safeguards to protect minority rights, such as the Bill of Rights and the separation of powers. Yet, despite these measures, the nation struggled, and continues to struggle, with issues like racial segregation, voter suppression, and economic inequality, demonstrating how easily majority power can be wielded to marginalize vulnerable groups. Similarly, in contemporary democracies around the world, populist movements and authoritarian tendencies have highlighted the dangers of unchecked majoritarianism, where leaders exploit electoral victories to undermine judicial independence, suppress dissent, and erode civil liberties. These examples underscore the delicate balance required to maintain a functioning democracy, one that respects both the will of the majority and the rights of minorities. The implications of the paradox of democracy extend far beyond theoretical debates, shaping the very structure and operation of democratic systems. To address this tension, societies rely on a range of institutional safeguards, including constitutions, independent judiciaries, and bills of rights, which serve as bulwarks against the excesses of majority rule. Checks and balances ensure that no single branch of government becomes too powerful, while civic education fosters a culture of responsibility and accountability among citizens. Beyond formal mechanisms, the paradox also invites reflection on the role of dialogue, empathy, and compromise in democratic life. By engaging in respectful discourse and seeking common ground, individuals and communities can bridge divides and build consensus, even in the face of deep disagreements. True democracy, therefore, requires not only robust institutions, but also an active and informed citizenry committed to upholding shared values. Moreover, the paradox of democracy challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about power, privilege, and representation. It forces us to ask difficult questions. Who gets to define the boundaries of acceptable behavior within a democracy? How do we ensure that marginalized voices are heard and respected, rather than silenced or ignored? And what obligations do we have as citizens to advocate for justice and equity, even when doing so runs counter to popular opinion? These questions reveal the moral dimensions of democracy, reminding us that governance is not merely a matter of procedure, but a deeply ethical endeavor. By grappling with these tensions, we deepen our understanding of what it means to live in a society that values both freedom and fairness. At a deeper level, the paradox underscores the fragility of democracy itself. Unlike authoritarian regimes, which rely on coercion and control to maintain order, democracies depend on trust, participation, and shared norms. When these foundations are weakened, whether by corruption, polarization, or apathy, the entire system becomes vulnerable to collapse. The paradox of democracy serves as a sobering reminder that democracy is not a static achievement, but a dynamic process that demands constant vigilance and renewal. It invites us to reflect on our own roles as stewards of democratic values, challenging us to engage actively in the work of building more inclusive, equitable, and resilient societies. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of democracy, we are reminded of the profound interconnectedness of freedom, justice, and community. The paradox challenges us to embrace complexity, recognizing that democracy is not a simple matter of majority rule, but a nuanced balancing act that requires wisdom, courage, and integrity. By contemplating the tensions between majority and minority, we deepen our appreciation for the delicate yet vital foundations of self-governance in an imperfect world. Now, as we transition to the next segment, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not confined to human constructs like democracy. They also manifest in the natural world, where order and chaos coexist in surprising ways. Consider the emergence of structure and patterns in systems governed by randomness and disorder. This phenomenon, known as the paradox of entropy, explores how order can arise from chaos, defying our intuitive expectations about the flow of energy and the inevitability of decay. Let us delve into this paradox, where science meets wonder, revealing the hidden harmonies that underpin the universe itself. The paradox of entropy, order arising from chaos. Entropy, the measure of disorder in a system, is said to always increase over time. Yet, life itself is a process of creating order from randomness. How is this possible? This paradox lies at the intersection of physics, biology, and philosophy, challenging our understanding of the natural world and the delicate balance between chaos and harmony. At its core, the paradox of entropy forces us to reconcile two seemingly contradictory truths. The universe as a whole tends toward disorder, yet within this inexorable march toward entropy, pockets of order emerge. Stars form galaxies, molecules assemble into living organisms, and societies develop complex structures. This tension between universal decay and localized creation invites us to marvel at the resilience of life and the ingenuity of systems that draw energy from their surroundings to defy the odds. The second law of thermodynamics states that in any closed system, entropy, or disorder, will always increase over time. This principle reflects the natural tendency of energy to disperse and systems to move from states of high organization to states of lower organization. For example, a hot cup of coffee left on a table will eventually cool down, transferring its heat to the surrounding air until thermal equilibrium is reached. Similarly, a sandcastle on a beach will erode under the relentless forces of wind and waves, returning to the chaotic scattering of grains from which it was built. These examples illustrate the inevitability of entropy, a concept that has profound implications for our understanding of the universe's fate. Left unchecked, the cosmos appears destined for a state of maximum entropy, a heat death, where all energy is evenly distributed and no work can be done. Yet, amidst this cosmic drift toward disorder, life stands as a striking counterpoint. Living organisms are engines of order, capable of reducing local entropy by drawing energy from external sources such as sunlight, chemical reactions, or other environmental inputs. Plants, for instance, harness solar energy through photosynthesis to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen, creating highly ordered structures like leaves, roots, and flowers. Animals, including humans, sustain themselves by consuming plants or other organisms, channeling energy through metabolic processes that maintain bodily functions and enable growth. Even ecosystems exhibit emergent order, with species interacting in intricate webs of mutual dependence that give rise to patterns of stability and adaptation. These phenomena demonstrate how life temporarily resists the pull of entropy, carving out islands of structure and complexity within an otherwise chaotic universe. The implications of the paradox of entropy extend far beyond the realm of science, offering profound insights into the nature of creativity, resilience, and interconnectedness. It teaches us that even in a universe tending toward disorder, moments of beauty and coherence can flourish, when the right conditions are met. Life itself is a testament to this principle, emerging not despite entropy, but because of it. By utilizing gradients of energy and matter, living systems transform chaos into order, demonstrating the power of dynamic exchange and collaboration. This lesson resonates deeply in human endeavors as well. Art, music, architecture, and technology all represent acts of creation that impose structure upon raw materials. Whether they be pigments on a canvas, sound waves in the air, or lines of computer code. Like living organisms, these creations depend on external inputs, inspiration, effort, resources, to bring order to the inherent unpredictability of existence. Moreover, the paradox of entropy invites reflection on the delicate interplay between chaos and harmony in both nature and society. Just as stars burn brightly against the vast darkness of space, so too do human achievements stand out against the backdrop of uncertainty and impermanence. The paradox reminds us that order is not a static state, but a dynamic process, requiring constant renewal and adaptation. In ecosystems, this balance is maintained through cycles of growth, decay, and regeneration. In human communities, it depends on cooperation, innovation, and shared values. By embracing the transient nature of order, we cultivate a deeper appreciation for the fleeting yet profound moments of clarity and connection that define our lives. At a deeper level, the paradox of entropy challenges us to confront the dualities of existence. It forces us to recognize that chaos and order are not opposing forces, but complementary aspects of a unified whole. Disorder provides the raw material from which new forms arise, while order offers a framework for meaning and purpose. This interplay mirrors the rhythms of life itself, where periods of turbulence often precede breakthroughs, and moments of stability create the conditions for growth. By contemplating the paradox of entropy, we deepen our understanding of the cyclical nature of reality, finding solace in the knowledge that even in decay, there lies the potential for renewal. As we sit with the implications of the paradox of entropy, we are reminded of the profound beauty and mystery inherent in the universe. The paradox challenges us to embrace uncertainty, recognizing that chaos is not something to be feared, but a source of endless possibility. By acknowledging the fragility of order, we learn to cherish the moments of harmony that emerge from the swirling currents of change. Through this lens, we see that life itself is a paradox, an improbable yet inevitable dance of structure and spontaneity, permanence and flux. Now, as we transition to the final segment of our journey, let us carry with us the awareness that paradoxes are not merely intellectual puzzles, but invitations to explore the deeper truths of existence. Embracing uncertainty may seem daunting, yet it holds the key to finding peace amidst the complexities of life. Let us conclude our exploration with the final paradox, a meditation on how accepting what we cannot control can lead to a profound sense of freedom and serenity. The final paradox. Embracing uncertainty to find peace. Life itself is the ultimate paradox, a blend of chaos and order, certainty and mystery, beginnings and endings. And perhaps the greatest paradox of all is that embracing uncertainty can lead to profound peace. This truth lies at the heart of human existence, challenging our instinctive desire for control and clarity. We spend much of our lives seeking answers, believing that knowledge will shield us from fear and instability. Yet, the more we cling to absolutes, the more we resist the natural ebb and flow of life, the further we drift from the serenity we seek. Paradoxically, it is in letting go of the need for certainty that we open ourselves to deeper understanding, connection, and inner calm. By surrendering to the unknown, we discover a freedom that transcends the limitations of logic and control, allowing us to live fully within the beauty of ambiguity. The concept of embracing uncertainty may seem counterintuitive, especially in a world that prizes predictability and precision. From an early age, we are taught to value answers over questions, solutions over exploration. Education systems reward memorization and problem solving, while societal norms encourage planning, goal setting, and risk mitigation. These frameworks serve important purposes. They help us navigate complexity, make decisions, and build stable foundations for our lives. However, they also foster a mindset that equates uncertainty with discomfort or failure. When faced with ambiguity, many of us experience anxiety, frustration, or even paralysis, as if the absence of clear answers signals a void that must be filled. But what if this void is not something to fear? What if it is, instead, an invitation to wonder, to grow, to create? The paradox unfolds when we recognize that uncertainty is not a flaw, but an intrinsic part of existence. Life's most meaningful moments often arise from situations where outcomes are unpredictable. Falling in love, pursuing a passion, facing adversity, or embarking on a journey of self-discovery. These experiences remind us that growth rarely follows a straight path. It emerges from the interplay of chance and choice, effort and surrender. Similarly, some of humanity's greatest achievements, scientific breakthroughs, artistic masterpieces, philosophical insights, have emerged from grappling with unanswered questions and unresolved tensions. Certainty, while comforting, can stifle creativity and curiosity, trapping us in rigid patterns of thought. Uncertainty, by contrast, invites us to remain open, adaptable, and alive to possibility. It challenges us to trust in our capacity to navigate the unknown, even when the way forward is unclear. This final paradox ties together everything we've explored tonight, weaving a tapestry of interconnected themes that span the limits of logic, the mysteries of consciousness, the dilemmas of ethics, and the beauty of imperfection. Each paradox we've encountered, from Gödel's incompleteness, Theorems, to the Sorites paradox, from the Bootstrap paradox, to the paradox of entropy, reveals a fundamental truth about the nature of reality. Life resists easy categorization. The boundaries between truth and falsehood, order and chaos, self and other, are far more fluid than they appear. Rather than viewing these ambiguities as obstacles, we can see them as opportunities to expand our perspectives, deepen our empathy, and cultivate a sense of awe for the infinite complexity of existence. The implications of this final paradox extend beyond intellectual reflection, offering practical guidance for how we live our lives. By leaning into ambiguity, we learn to embrace imperfection, not as a sign of weakness, but as a testament to our humanity. We begin to see mistakes and failures, not as endpoints, but as stepping stones toward growth and transformation. We develop resilience, recognizing that setbacks are not deviations from the plan, but integral parts of the process. Most importantly, we forge connections with ourselves, with others, and with the world around us that transcend the illusion of separation. In doing so, we tap into a source of meaning and purpose that no amount of certainty could ever provide. At a deeper level, the final paradox invites us to reframe our relationship with the unknown. Instead of fearing what we cannot control, we can view uncertainty as fertile ground for creativity and renewal. Think of it as a blank canvas, waiting for the brushstrokes of your imagination. Every question you ask, every risk you take, every moment of vulnerability becomes an act of co-creation with the universe, shaping the unfolding story of your life. This perspective does not eliminate uncertainty, it transforms it into a source of liberation. By releasing the need to have all the answers, we step into the flow of existence, trusting that the journey itself holds its own rewards. As you drift off to sleep, carry this thought with you. The unknown isn't something to fear, it's a canvas waiting for your brushstrokes. In the quiet moments before dreams take hold, allow yourself to rest in the gentle rhythm of paradoxes, unresolved. After all, it's not about finding all the answers, it's about learning to live gracefully within the questions. Life's uncertainties are not flaws to be fixed, but invitations to explore, to marvel at the interplay of light and shadow, to dance with the tension between opposites, and to find peace in the spaces between. Good night, sleep well,